Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal Venerable. See playlist for other chapters and novels. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 3121, An Attack. Back then, Zen had first met Elvinia at the Seven Mountains meeting. Some time later, Zen returned home after obtaining the Shade Stone, only to find out that Lavender, Laquisha, and Nellie had been invited by Elvinia to the Phoenix Palace. Furious, he had stormed the Phoenix Palace to face Elvinia right then and there. To his surprise, the three women were actually quite content there, so Zen didn't force them to come back. However, now, Elvinia had invited Letitia and Margaret. What was she up to? Why didn't you tell me in advance? Zen frowned deeply. Elvinia smiled apologetically. I thought they were bored in the Flow Sword sect, so I invited them to the Phoenix Palace. Besides, you were busy practicing in seclusion the other day, so I didn't get the chance to tell you. The Phoenix Palace was not a dangerous place after all, and to a certain extent, it was actually safer than the Flow Sword sect. Still, it was a bit suspicious that Elvinia was being courteous to Letitia and Margaret. Zen shook his head. He couldn't figure it out. He just said, forget it. Let's just refine the body-strengthening jade. Okay. Elvinia nodded meekly. Zen thought he saw a hint of amusement in her eyes, but it quickly disappeared. She then concentrated on crushing the body-strengthening jade for her body to absorb it. Just like Zen, refining the body-strengthening jade was easy for Elvinia. It was more efficient to strengthen the corporeal body than to enhance the soul of light. For Zen, strengthening his corporeal body meant he could use it outside the other shore. Elvinia, on the other hand, couldn't bring her corporeal body outside the other shore, so it seemed a bit wasteful to strengthen it. However, after occupying the Myriad Spirits City, Zen had obtained a lot of resources. Even after he distributed some to the disciples of the Land of Sword Grief, there was still a lot of leftover. Just as Zen was about to continue refining the body-strengthening jade, a bright yellow shadow darted into his line of sight. When his eyes adjusted to the figure approaching him, he realized it was the leader of the Guide Weasel race, Clyde. Sir, something is happening in the Sky-Water City, Clyde reported anxiously. Zen and Elvinia exchanged glances. These days, the Guide Weasel race had been closely observing the movements of the Sky-Water City. No matter what the news was, they would report everything to Zen. What is it? Zen asked with one eyebrow raised. The elite members of the Star Falcon race are coming straight to the Myriad Spirits City. Clyde's small, beady eyes looked serious as he spoke. The Star Falcon race was able to occupy the Sky-Water City, and their strength was far greater than that of the Guide Weasel race and the Giant race. In the past few years, the Star Falcon race had also thought of attacking the Myriad Spirits City, but it would cause a lot of trouble, so the two races had been living a relatively peaceful time. Unexpectedly, because of Zen and Elvinia, the Star Falcon race decided now was the time to strike. In Clyde's eyes, they were a force to be reckoned with. However, to the Guide Weasel race, while this might have seemed like imminent doom, it was also a rare opportunity. If Zen wiped out the elite members of the Star Falcon race, the Guide Weasel race and the Giant race would be able to counterattack and take charge of the Sky-Water City. So when Clyde saw the elite members of the Star Falcon race come out, he excitedly raced to Zen to tell him the news. Zen handed over the body-strengthening jade to Elvinia, who tucked it into her space ring. Looking up to the sky, Zen asked, how long before they arrive? With the speed of the Star Falcon race, roughly 2 hours, Clyde replied. We're ready to fight at any time. Knowing Zen and Elvinia were incredibly powerful, the Guide Weasel race and the Giant race were confident. Banking on the two's strength, they were willing to go all out. Good. Ask all the disciples of the Oneness Sky Palace to leave the other shore. You, come with me to the gate of the city. Zen stood up and walked out of the city guard house, with Elvinia at his heels. Standing at the gate, Zen had an overlooking view of the broad plain in the distance. The purple light was dancing in the sky. It was constantly giving off pressure. The souls of light could feel the coldness if they were shrouded in the purple light, but when it struck on Zen's body, it was like a piece of hot charcoal, causing a faint burning sensation from time to time. On the city wall, the mole crickets, carrying green kylan bows in their hands, stood still. They were the aboriginals of the myriad spirit city, and they had always obeyed the orders of the city guard house. After Zen took over the city guard house, they became somewhat like his private soldiers. In addition to the mole crickets as archers, many giants who held massive clubs also stood on the city wall. They looked menacing, as though a swing of a club would break down half the city wall. As for the members of the guide weasel race, they were hiding on both sides of the city wall. Like the ear mice, they were small, so they were not suitable for direct combat. However, they were agile and nimble. Their secret tactic was to land fatal blows up close, which was extremely hard to guard against. Roughly an hour later, there was a dot of light in the distance, as though a star suddenly lit up. In the blink of an eye, many more stars appeared, dotting the broad plain before them. "What beautiful stars," Elvinia said under her breath. "They are not stars," said Clyde, who overheard her. "They are star falcons. They're almost upon us." The star falcon was a very ferocious bird, with a dazzling star-like diamond embedded on its chest. As the star falcons got closer and closer, Elvinia could see their wings flapping with the wind. "You stay here and don't leave the city wall," Zen suddenly said to Elvinia. Elvinia didn't know how to fly. Even though she had a strong body as a purified being, it was still risky for her to face the star falcon race. "Fine," Elvinia frowned slightly. She didn't like to feel useless in times of trouble. 30,000 feet, Clyde announced. 20,000 feet. 10,000 feet. Clyde narrowed his beady eyes at the flying figures closing in on them. 8,000 feet. Shoot, he commanded the archers. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Like green rain, arrows whizzed through the air towards the star falcons. From the receiving end of the arrows, the largest star falcon at the forefront squinted at the city wall. It was the leader of the star falcon race, Hans. Thanks to their exceptional vision, the star falcons could see the figures on the wall of the myriad spirit city clearly. Finally, Hans' eyes landed on what he was looking for. "Strange," Hans murmured. "The two targets are in plain sight." He didn't care about the failures of the ghost scorpion and the dark bear race. The star falcon race was above all the races in the light region of stage 14, they were the rulers there. The second Hans received the request from the sun crow race, he had agreed with no hesitation. It seemed to be a good opportunity to invade the myriad spirit city. Unbothered by the volley of arrows coming straight for him, Hans simply flapped his wide wings. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A strong wind blew from Hans' incredible wings, sending the arrows backwards till they plummeted to the ground. Chapter 3122, Counterattack. Witnessing their chief flick away the volley of arrows as though they were but toothpicks, the rest of the star falcon race cheered. "The myriad spirit city is still weak. They are too weak. This city should have been occupied by our star falcon race long ago. You know nothing. The best way is to control it through the dark bear race. There is no need for us to take over this city." The members of the star falcon race cackled amongst themselves as they flew towards the city wall. The star falcon race thought very highly of themselves, and had always belittled the myriad spirit city. So it had piqued their curiosity when their chief decided to gather all their forces just to kill 2 human targets. This was unacceptable, beneath them, really. Due to their relationship with the sun crow race, the star falcon race had always protected the souls of light of the bearing race and the divine farmer race. And these 2 races also enjoyed a high status in the Skywater city, but even so, the star falcon race still thought lowly of humans. In their eyes, the humans were weak. But their human targets had even bodies on the other shore. "Ah-oh!" All of a sudden, Hans let out a high-pitched cry, commanding his troops to strike back. Obeying their chief, all the star falcons spread out their wings in unison. The diamond embedded in their chests glowed, emitting a trace of star radiance that formed a ring. This ring grew bigger and bigger, till it was as big as their massive bodies. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. From within the ring, thousands of long and thin light swords with star radiance shot out towards the city wall. These swords were several times more powerful than the green arrows shot by the mole crickets. "Squeak, activate the array," Clyde ordered promptly. In no time, several guide weasels hiding in the darkness activated the array that was arranged on the city wall. The guide weasel race had lived in the myriad spirits city since time immemorial. Over the years, they had planted arrays in the city. One, in particular, was the Heavenly Harmony array at the front of the city. This array had been gifted to them a long time ago by an ancient civilization. Buzz! A thick, white fog rose from the ground, enshrouding the whole city wall. Once the star falcon's swords pierced the fog, it was as though they had landed in jelly. The long, thin swords then abruptly turned around, and shot back from whence they came. Whoosh, 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 the white fog is sending our starry swords back. Split up. The star falcons that had been soaring in the air panicked, and anxiously spread out to dodge the swords shooting back at them. Amazingly, no one got hurt. Chief, what should we do? The array they're using is strange. How did they bounce back our starry swords? However, Hans just snorted at them. Impatiently, he let out another piercing cry. Keep attacking. This order confused many star falcons. But since it was given by their chief, they just obeyed, and continued to form more starry rings, shooting more starry swords towards the city. Whoosh, 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 facing the second volley of thin swords, the giants standing on the city wall laughed. It was a well-known fact that the Star Falcon race was the strongest race in Stage 14. However, this battle seemed to be proving that fact wrong. How could the Star Falcon race be so foolish as to launch the same attack once more? Undoubtedly, these starry swords would be bounced back to the sky by the Heavenly Harmony array again, no matter how powerful they were. The instant the starry swords fell, a tearing sound suddenly came from below the city wall. Bang, 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 with a burst of roars coming from the bottom of the city wall, a great number of creatures in green armor drilled out from the ground. They were from the mountain-breaking race. They had lived in the Sky Water City and followed the Star Falcon race since a long time ago. Back when the Dark Bear race was in charge of the City Guard House, the Star Falcon race had already dug out all the secrets of the Myriad Spirits City. Of course they'd been expecting the Heaven Harmony array. The Star Falcon race launching attacks from the sky was actually a distraction. In order to let the mountain-breaking race sneak in from underground, they were willing to risk looking foolish. Alas, the array's foundation was destroyed. The white fog that had been shrouding the city dissipated into thin air. Then, the starry swords shot down like heavy rain. A giant who had been smirking just seconds prior was suddenly impaled by a starry sword, falling to the ground with a heavy thud. Pained cries filled the air as other creatures were being shot. Dang it! Raoul brandished a thick metal club. The club's shadows covered Zen's and Elvinia's heads, smashing the starry swords that fell on this area into pieces. Sir, the Heavenly Harmony array has been destroyed. We have to retreat, Clyde said urgently. The biggest advantage of the Star Falcon race was that they could fly. On the contrary, the giants were good at head-on combat, whereas the guide weasels were good at sneaky assassination. Neither of the two races had a chance against the enemy they were facing now. Click, 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 as each of the starry swords dropped, it would pierce the city wall, leaving a deep gash. In the blink of an eye, the city wall was already riddled with holes. If we retreat, we can't kill them, Zen said firmly, staring at the Star Falcons in the sky. If they want to occupy the Myriad Spirits City, they will have to land first. Only then will we have a chance. Clyde analyzed. Clyde's right, but their target is the two of you, echoed Raoul, who stood nearby. Although they were full of fighting spirit, they were keenly aware that they couldn't fight against the Star Falcon race without the Heavenly Harmony array. It was reasonable for them to retreat first. There's no need to retreat, Zen said calmly. Elvinia gently asked, do you want me to send you up? Okay, Zen smiled. Elvinia suddenly yanked the metal club from Raoul's hands, leaving him stunned. A mighty creature like Raoul should have been able to respond quickly, since he regarded his weapon as important as his own life. But even if Raoul had been quick enough to respond, in that moment, he had felt an incredible power from Elvinia's slender arms. There was no way he could have resisted. The metal club was instantly taken away by Elvinia. Elvinia then raised the metal club towards the sky, and Zen jumped onto it. Bang! From Elvinia's fingers erupted a powerful force, which was channeled through the club, shooting Zen thousands of feet into the air. If Zen's body was any weaker, this strike would have destroyed his body. Raoul was absolutely dumbfounded. Even the residual force from the smash hurt his face. But Zen was able to withstand it. How strong was this man? As Zen shot into the sky, a pair of thunder wings appeared on his back. Thanks to Elvinia's little trick, Zen flew like a flash of lightning. Before the Star Falcons had the time to react, they heard a thunderous roar and then felt a heavy blow on their chests. Disgruntled, they lost their balance and plunged to the ground. Crack, 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 Zen's body had suddenly turned into a lightning arc in the air, hitting Star Falcons one after another without a break. Once his body arc hit a Star Falcon, it would plummet down, a black mark seared on the chest. In about 10 seconds, more than 20 Star Falcons had already plunged to their deaths, most of which were elites. The rest of the Star Falcons were shocked. Hans, shaking his head, tried to gather his wits. Chapter 3123, Capture the Leader. Of course, letting Zen kill them like that was out of the question. According to their intel, there was no record of Zen being able to fly. They imagined Zen would be struck down by the human woman's club. Zen's flexible figure was reflected in Han's eyes. "Au!" With a piercing cry from Hans, all the star falcons spread their wings and quickly distanced themselves from each other. This space between them made it difficult for Zen to kill them. Zen could not fly very fast as he was relying on the thunderstorm godly way to fly. He had just been shot up into the air by Elvinia's power, and as he rose he was able to strike down more than 20 star falcons in an instant with his great power. But now, he began to get slower and slower. Crack! He rushed at another star falcon, who suddenly tilted his wings and flew to the other side, dodging Zen's attack with great agility. After Zen failed to hit anything, a huge star falcon dashed towards him. His name was Garth and he was Hans' assistant, second only to Hans in terms of strength and status in the star falcon race. On the front end of his wings were many silver spangles. The surface of the spangles was engraved with an ancient array. Under the array, all the spangles were sharp as blades. This was the magic weapon created by the Riverside race. Phew! Garth raised his wings and charged at Zen at an astonishing speed, moving like a flying saber. In the blink of an eye, he slashed at Zen. Seeing the dazzling spangles on his wings, Zen abruptly somersaulted in the air and nimbly dodged the attack. But the Star Falcon race was a flying race after all, so every member could pretty much fly from birth. Naturally they were more experienced in aerial combat than human beings. Garth seemed to have predicted Zen's movement and as he moved backwards, Garth screeched excitedly and flew in the same direction as he did. He rushed towards him rotating his body at the same time. Swish, swish, swish. The other Star Falcon's eyes ignited with joy on seeing this. Garth's blade cyclone, it will cut anything in its path to tiny pieces. That brat is doomed. The Star Falcons hadn't expected Zen to kill more than 20 of their companions in an instant, so their great resentment was to be expected. Of course they hoped that Garth would chop Zen into pieces and that they could then eat him after. However, what they did not know was that battling with the physical body was the least of Zen's fears. Garth's wings rotated crazily and rolled towards Zen, when in a flash Zen grabbed at Garth ferociously. "How dare you lay your hands on me? Brat," Garth sneered. The spangles on his wings were called heavenly feather teeth. Each of them was carefully made by the most renowned craftsmen of the Riverside race. In order to make and gather 36 spangles, both the Riverside race and the Star Falcon race had paid a hefty price. Except for a few defensive weapons of stage 14, nothing else could withstand the wing's slicing ability, let alone the physical human body. Even the city walls of the Myriad Spirit City were soft as mud before his wings. A huge clang rang out as Zen's hand blocked Garth's right wing. Not only had his wing failed to cut Zen's hand, it had slammed into something unbelievably hard. "Oh no, what is in this human brat's palm? It has somehow managed to block my heavenly feather teeth." Garth was startled and attempted to withdraw his right wing. Only then did he feel Zen's iron grip as his hand didn't budge at all. Garth was stuck. In a moment of desperation, he slashed at Zen with his left wing, but before the blow could land, his wing was clamped by Zen's other hand. "Au!" In a panic, Garth squawked a sharp cry for help, at the same time dragging Zen and rolling desperately in the air. Even Hans, the leader, had believed that Garth could defeat Zen, yet he had cried for help so soon. He was considered as one of the best fighters in the Star Falcon race. Shocked at the scene before them, no Star Falcon nearby dared to rush forward. Finally, Hans flew up and swooped at Zen. No matter what, he had to save Garth first. "He is finally coming." Zen noticed Hans approaching as he was rolling over. The most effective method was to kill the leader of the race first, just as he had killed the leader of the Dark Bear race and then destroyed the rest. Once the leader was taken care of, dealing with the rest would be a piece of cake. Hans was massive and had been issuing all the orders. Zen had long set his sights on him as his highest priority target. "Hey!" Zen grabbed Garth's wings and pulled him towards his chest. Garth shot at him with a shriek. Zen curled up and suddenly stretched his legs out to bounce off of Garth. Boom! Zen kicked off him, releasing a power of around 2,000 divine megatons. The physical body of a bird was weaker than an ordinary creature. How could Garth bear this force? Zen's footprints sank down into Garth's chest. The bones and viscera in his body shattered and his huge body plummeted down. Zen darted like an arrow, at incredible speed once more, by using the counterforce. As the chief leader of the Star Falcon race, Hans was the smartest and most powerful of them all. He remained vigilant, his eyes focused intently as he approached Zen. He had seen how he handled Garth and this put him on guard. To Han's surprise, when he was still over 200 feet away, Zen had stamped on Garth and rushed to him by means of the counterforce. I'm his target, an idea popped into Han's mind. Illusory transformation, escape. The bird's innate alertness would probably save him, if Zen was not the one he was up against. Hans displayed a weird movement skill. His wings rolled and formed many golden shadows which spread in all directions like thousands of star falcons. You hope to escape with just a little trick. Zen's gaze was fixed on Han's real figure and he stretched out towards him. But his hand went right through the figure like it was a cloud and it disappeared before his eyes. This bodily movement skill was somewhat similar to the 8 smoky melodies that Zen had cultivated and even the feather of Wing King. Unfortunately, using such a skill before Zen was a display of one's meager ability to an expert. Chapter 3124, Die with Me. Failing to capture Hans, Zen activated the civilization artifact in his body, and then a cyan feather suddenly sprouted from his body. He felt his body become extraordinarily light. He reached out his hand again and this time, successfully grabbed Hans' tail though he moved swiftly via illusory transformation. "Ow!" Hans howled in frustration. He flapped his wings wildly, stirring up strong winds that buffeted Zen. Now that he had been caught by Zen, how would he be able to escape? Elvenia, who stood on the city wall, focused her eyes on the scene that had unfolded in midair. It was not exciting for her, she even felt a bit bored. On the other hand, Raoul and Clyde gasped in shock as their eyes widened in awe. Isn't that Hans, the leader of the Star Falcon race? This is incredible, Clyde exclaimed. As the leader of the Guide Weasel race, Clyde had already encountered Hans in the past. That powerful Star Falcon had shown true arrogance in front of the Guide Weasel race. Clyde was already the leader of the Guide Weasel race but he still felt inferior in front of Hans. It was hard to believe that Hans was seized by Zen so easily, and he looked extremely miserable. I have wanted to smash that face myself for so long. Raoul grunted as he looked at his own metal club in Elvenia's hand. Elvenia held it with one hand casually. The metal club was thick and extremely heavy. It took Raoul a lot of effort to carry it. However, the thin human girl had been able to hold it easily in just one hand. Seeing her toughness and strength made Raoul doubt the talents of the giants. If Zen really defeats Hans, that's one less problem for us, Clyde mused with a chuckle. The Star Falcon race had taken advantage of their tremendous strength to put the Skywater City under their control. When their strength waned and people noticed it, a rebellion would probably take place to overthrow their power in the Skywater City. In the past, the Dark Bear race had used their strength to forcibly take over the city guard house. Unexpectedly, it was not Zen who made the first move to control the city guard house but the Guide Weasel race and the giants. Zen's role was only to kill the strongest one, and that was all they would have required of him. Hans tried his best to shake Zen off. He dragged Zen up and down while the other Star Falcons followed closely behind them. Fear and panic were visible in their eyes. They needed to think of a way to rescue their leader from Zen's clutches, fast. Kill him, Hans ordered in a commanding voice. The moment they heard his order, all of the Star Falcons raised their wings in response, forming starry rings. Swish, 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 starry swords shot straight towards Zen from all directions, looking like sparkling golden streaks. However, as Zen had grasped Hans by his tail, the other Star Falcons hesitated in attacking in fear of injuring their leader. As a result, they weren't able to shoot at Zen accurately. Moreover, it seemed like Zen was protected by invisible rules after he had activated the feather of the Wing King. Even if there was a stray starry sword that luckily managed to get within striking distance from Zen, he would have easily dodged it by shaking his body slightly. Therefore, even a synchronized attack from such a multitude of Star Falcons wasn't enough to put even the tiniest scratch on Zen. Zen slowly made his way up Hans' body by grabbing his tail bit by bit until he eventually reached Hans' back. Suddenly, he leapt to grab Hans' neck and whispered coldly, "If you still want to live, go down." It was extremely easy for Zen to kill the Star Falcon right then and there, but it would produce a better reaction if he controlled him in the Myriad Spirits City. "Do you want the Star Falcon race to surrender? Over our dead bodies?" Hans lifted his head proudly. "You think you have a choice?" Zen asked. Breaking the giant Star Falcon's neck was just like snapping a twig for Zen. "Of course I have. Star stasis," Hans trilled once again. In response, the gem embedded in his chest began to glow brightly, scintillating with a brilliant starry light. Buzz! A huge starry ring rapidly spread out along his wings and formed a sphere, totally engulfing his body together with Zen. The scant space within the sphere was just enough to contain Hans' bird body and Zen's own. His large wings still extended beyond the boundaries of the sphere. As the sphere enveloped Zen, it also exerted a resistance force. Zen suddenly felt his strength being sapped, as if he had fallen into quicksand, the resistance weighing his body down at a great extent. Aside from losing his strength, he also felt that the flow of blood and air, as well as the transmission of sound, were extremely slowed down. What is this strength? Even Zen's speech became slurred. An expression of surprise came over his features. It doesn't matter what type of strength it is, I'm taking you down with me. Hans sneered. A slight tilt of Hans' wings outside the sphere made both of them glide in the sky and turn towards the east of the myriad spirit city. Clyde, who had been standing on the city wall, was shocked when he saw what happened. Oh no, it looks like Hans wants to bring Zen into the dark region. The dark region? Elvenia blinked her eyes in shock, refusing to believe what she had just heard. Yes. East of the myriad spirit city, and beyond the heavenly dark mountain and the earthly dark mountain, there is a corner of the dark region. That must be where they are headed, Clyde explained, a tinge of worry in his voice. Zen will be doomed, Raoul said with a horrified expression. Both Raoul and Clyde were creatures from the other shore. They had always stayed in the light region as it was ingrained in them that the dark region was a dangerous place. All the creatures in the light region were taught to be cautious of the dark region from the moment that they were born. He has. Elvenia stopped in the middle of her sentence. She had wanted to reassure them that Zen had darkness fruits and candles that were enough to enable him to stay in the dark region, but she belatedly realized that Zen had not been carrying a space ring on his body. All of the darkness fruits and candles were in her possession. Gosh, take me to the dark region. Elvenia threw Raoul's metal club forcefully. The club tumbled in the air for more than 10 times, then embedded into the city wall with a metallic clang. As she launched herself into the air, she straightened her legs together tightly. Her whole body resembled an arrow that had just been shot from a bow, heading directly east. Clyde and Raoul followed closely on her heels. Raoul's body was immense, and every step he took would have spanned about 300 feet. Clyde's extreme speed was one of his advantages over other creatures. Both of them had not been able to catch up to Elvenia, but they weren't far behind her. They could not help themselves from worrying. If Zen met his fateful end here, it wouldn't end well for them, either. On the other hand, they wouldn't achieve anything good by going there. No one was able to prevent Hans from bringing Zen with him into the dark region. Although Zen had been engulfed by the star stasis, dying had been far from his mind. He knew that with his current body, those starry swords would be harmless to him. But when Hans took Zen and leapt through 2 mountains, a dark area was revealed in front of their eyes. The dark region. You want to drag me into the dark region? Zen's expression rapidly changed into a dire one. Without the darkness fruits and candles, no one who had entered the dark region had ever survived. Zen didn't think that he was an exception. He probably knew far more about the dark region than Hans, who had been a creature of the light region. My starry gem has already begun to burn, and there is no chance for me to live. You should feel honored that I'm taking you to die with me. Hans shrieked. The starry gem was a gemstone embedded in the chest of the star falcons. The star stasis with the greatest resistance could only be activated by burning the starry gem. Once the starry gem was fully consumed and burnt out, it would also be the end of Hans' life. Chapter 3125, The Light from the Crack. One could compare the dark region to a huge, black beast that spanned the eastern region of stage 14. The area Zen saw was part of the dark region's far end, closest to the myriad spirit city. Hans had no intention of perishing together with Zen. He was the mighty leader of the Star Falcon race. He had a lot to live for. However, it seemed that death was the only way to go after he discovered Zen's true power. Swoosh, swoosh. There was a sharp sound as the wings outside the ball flapped and carried Zen towards the dark region. Chief, one of his followers called out. There's no need to perish with this human man. Chief, please, there must be another way. The other Star Falcons continued to plead as they followed behind their leader. Only an hour had passed since their attack on the Myriad Spirits City, but in that short time period, all elite members of their race had been eliminated. Garth, so mighty and strong, also died in Zen's hands. The only solution Hans could think of in order to subdue Zen was to bring him into the dark region. The Star Falcons could only grovel at his feet to persuade him not to go. Get out of the way! Hans roared, his patience worn thin by his insistent followers. He had already made his decision and there was no way he was going to change his mind. His roar sent his followers scampering away. There was no stopping their leader anymore. All they could do was stay out of his way and let him head into the dark region. Meanwhile, Zen was struggling within the ball. The power released by the star stasis was strange. It was a type of sealing power that froze Zen's entire body. He looked on as the ball took him closer to the dark region, his expression growing grimmer by the second. In between the heavenly dark mountain and the earthy dark mountain was a low mountain ridge. Elvenia rushed to the foot of the ridge and released her full strength, shooting forward like an arrow. The force she exerted was enough to shake the earth. Clyde and Raoul trailing behind her could only look on in shock as cracks appeared on the ground. Elvenia walked on. Over time, Elvenia's speed decreased and she fell on a slope at the side of the mountain. Crack! A huge crack like a spider web appeared where she stood before she was suddenly off again. Elvenia stopped for 2 or 3 times more to get a break. Pretty soon, she saw the Star Falcons and Hans rushing towards the dark region at breakneck speed. A trace of horror appeared in her eyes. No, there was no way she could allow Zen to be brought into the dark region like this. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Clyde and Raoul, who had been closely following her this whole time, were shell-shocked at what they saw. He's doomed, Raoul muttered hopelessly. Clyde shook his head. The star stasis is said to be able to stop the flow of all energy. There's no way he'll be able to resist it. Falling into the dark region had a multitude of consequences. No matter how strong Zen was, death was inescapable. However, Clyde had a plan. Zen's death wasn't going to be that big of a deal if Elvenia was still alive. Her strength wasn't any weaker than Zen's, or that was what Clyde thought since she was undefeatable in stage 14. While the two paused to think about their current situation, Elvenia began to release a soft aura. As she did so, her pupils rolled up so that the only thing visible were the whites of her eyes. Princess Elvenia, Raoul called out in shock by her appearance. Clyde was the same and could only helplessly call out for her, Princess Elvenia. She seemed to have lost her consciousness but her body thrummed with power. Elvenia's hands were raised in front of her with wisps of white light emanating between her fingers. Light wasn't something that could be easily controlled. Most, if not all, usually scattered and formed a simple line. However, the one Elvenia released was forming several unique shapes. What are those? Raoul asked. The sight of these blazing white lights made Clyde's eyes twitch. As the leader of the Guide Weasel race, he was privy to the legends that circulated about the dark region. It was said that purified beings could create lights that had the ability to eliminate all creatures of the dark region. Could it be as the legends said? Was Elvenia a purified being? There was no way. She was from a world outside the other shore. There was no way she could be a purified being. However, the more Clyde thought about it, the more confused he became. If Elvenia wasn't a purified being, then what other explanation would be reasonable? The moment Elvenia crossed her hands, the light in her eyes suddenly went out, revealing her pupils once again. Her face was pale with fatigue and she promptly passed out on the ground. Just as she fell, Raoul reached out and caught her in his huge palm. Princess Elvenia, he cried out, trying to shake her awake. Oh, my goodness, Clyde murmured in disbelief. What the heck happened? Raoul asked with a helpless expression. Darkness covered the whole dark region. However, at that moment, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the sky above the edge of the dark region. It emitted a blazing white light that blinded anyone who dared look at it. The Star Falcons could do nothing but watch as their leader was swallowed in the darkness and disappeared from view. As soon as Hans entered the dark region, the energy within it began to erode his corporeal body. His hair, his flesh, and even his bones cracked instantly. Zen, who was wrapped in the star stasis, was able to resist. However, as creatures of the light region, it was only a matter of time before they got completely devoured by the darkness. Just when Hans thought he had achieved his goal, a crack suddenly appeared in the sky and bright light flooded the dark region. This bright light completely won over the darkness and illuminated an area with a radius of 100 miles. What the heck? Hans exclaimed in disbelief. They were in the dark region. Where in the world did this light come from? There was no way that was possible. Hans racked his brains but couldn't figure out an explanation. The creatures of the dark region were the ones that bore the brunt of this light's sudden appearance. The moment it touched them, they all burned to ashes and died. It was in this way that the dark demon plants, which stood 10,000 feet high, and the 5-color earthly dragons perished. Chapter 3126, The Pear Hill Stronghold. It was known that despite having turned into ashes, things in the dark region could not exist in the light. The white light had eroded them, and as a result their ashes had completely dissipated. Almost everything was swept away, to the point that the area within a 100-mile radius was practically spotless and abnormally clean. As for the creature from the Star Falcon race, Hans, he was now on the verge of death. He had burned his starry gem, while the dark region had eroded his whole body. How did you make it? He couldn't help but ask Zen when they fell down together. Apparently, he thought that Zen had created that beam of light. Zen looked at the star falcon in front of him, who was at the last moments of his life. Because we have a purified being, he said with a smile. Back in stage 13 of the other shore, he had witnessed how Elvinia had released such a terrifyingly powerful burst of light. Yet at that time, the great Sanskrit light, which had descended from the sky, was only sustained for a short period of time. Now, the great Sanskrit light that came from the space crack was almost too dazzling, as if it was going to change the entire dark region into the light region. It meant only one thing, and that was Elvinia's abilities had improved. A purified being, Hans gasped. His originally enlarged eyes glinted with anxiety. Zen noticed it, and wondered what Hans was worried about. Before he could ask about it, Hans' eyes closed shut and he fell straight down. Zen's eyes narrowed into slits as he looked up at the huge crack in the sky. He suddenly felt curious. How could the crack be filled with great Sanskrit light? What kind of world is inside? He muttered. Even Elvinia couldn't answer the question, and unfortunately it was also impossible for him to explore the crack now. He was still in the dark region and didn't know how long the crack would be there. Once it closed, the dark region would probably be back again. Without Hans' disturbance, the thunder wings on his back spread out once more. Zen sped up in the air and quickly left the dark region. The other members of the Star Falcon race had seen Zen and Hans enter the dark region, but they didn't expect such a strange thing to happen. When they saw Zen fly back with the help of the thunder wings, all the Star Falcons immediately flew away in all directions. Zen didn't plan on chasing and killing them anyway. Now that Hans, the chief of the Star Falcon race, was dead, all the other things could be easily solved. Just as the Star Falcons had flown away, the crack in the sky slowly healed, and the incandescent light gradually disappeared into the crack. The dark region had engulfed the originally white-colored area, and it was once again covered in darkness. As soon as Zen saw the endless darkness envelope the space in front of him, something popped up in his mind. The dark region and the light region belonged to two different areas, but he didn't know how the dark region came into being. Crack! Zen's thunder wings let out a sizzling sound. He flew up towards the heavenly dark mountain and earthly dark mountain at once. When he passed through the ridge that was connected to the two mountains, he saw Clyde and Raoul, as well as Elvinia, who was in Raoul's huge palm. Zen frowned and immediately flew down. The two creatures of the other shore, Raoul and Clyde, did not react at all until now. They just stayed there with dull expressions on their faces. What happened to Elvinia? Zen asked. Well, you can blame it on what happened just now. She used too much of her strength, Raoul said and pointed up at the sky far away. So, she fainted. Placing his hand on Elvinia's forehead, Zen detected that her soul wasn't damaged and her breathing was even. He was relieved. Afterwards, he gently lifted her off Raoul's palm and put her on his back. Let's go back and discuss the thing further. As he spoke, he spread out his wings and flew towards the direction of the Myriad Spirit City. Just like that, the battle with the Star Falcon race ended. Zen had originally thought that things would have gone simpler. It turned out that he had underestimated the creatures on the other shore. Another day had passed. The atmosphere was busy as the strong warriors of the Guide Weasel race and the Giant race gathered together in the city guard house. A creature from the other shore stood in the front of the hall. He looked like a human being even with his blue skin, long hands and feet, and the long beard on his face that touched the ground. Who is this? Zen asked upon seeing the strange creature. He belongs to the Riverside race, Clyde answered respectfully. There was a time when Zen heard that the Riverside race belonged in the Myriad Spirits City before. Later on, they moved to the Skywater City. All of them were known for being skillful craftsmen. The Riverside race, from the Skywater City? Zen asked. Sir, all the members of the Star Falcon race have fled back to the Skywater City after they were defeated. Now, the Skywater City is in a mess, and our race is also suffering. Please send people to drive the Star Falcon race out of the Skywater City. The man from the Riverside race pleaded. Overall, the creatures of the other shore in the city had lived in peace when the Star Falcon race had controlled the Skywater City. Yet, the Star Falcon race suddenly became weak, so the races they had suppressed naturally started to rebel. Some races even intended to eliminate the whole Star Falcon race, as proof of their surrender to Zen, just like what the Guide Weasel race and the Giant race had done before. On the other hand, the members of the Riverside race were born to be fond of peace and calm life, and didn't like to fight with other races. That was why the man from the Riverside race had rushed to the Myriad Spirit City, in hopes that Zen would occupy the Sky Water City right away. Sir, we, the Guide Weasel race and the Giant race will go to the Sky Water City. There's no need for you to go there in person, Clyde added hastily. Zen casually glanced at Clyde, then was able to read his mind. The Star Falcon race had lost its core leaders after Hans and Garth died. As a result, their fighting capacity was reduced by several levels. Zen could now conquer the Sky Water City quite easily. Unfortunately, Elvenia had been in a coma since she returned to the city guard house. Thus, Zen wasn't in the mood to besiege the Sky Water City. Besides, he wasn't in a hurry, but the Guide Weasel race and the Giant race were extremely anxious. Of course, he would leave Stage 14 sooner or later. By then, the two races would work together to control the Sky Water City and the Myriad Spirit City. That was what they had been dreaming of for so long. In the past, they could only fantasize about such a thing. Now that they already had a foundation to realize their dreams, what else could they do but pursue them? To wipe out the Star Falcon race, the Guide Weasel race had most likely instigated the Riverside race to seek help from Zen. In this case, you can go there and fight, Zen said faintly. His words were like a king's decree as Clyde and Raoul quickly lit up with excitement. In a snap, they were gone along with the man from the Riverside race. It wasn't long before the news about the defeat of the Star Falcon race and Han's death had spread throughout the Sky Water City. At that time, most of the members of the Star Falcon race tried to stabilize and comfort the other races of the other shore in the Sky Water City. When dusk came, 6 members of the Star Falcon race quietly left the Sky Water City and flew south. Many great races in the Source World had chosen to establish their strongholds in the Myriad Spirit City or the Sky Water City, but there were some exceptions. For example, the stronghold of Pear Hill wasn't located in either of those cities, but at another area in Stage 14. After a while of flying in the air, the 6 members of the Star Falcon race finally landed on top of the Pear Hill stronghold. Chapter 3127, Evil Plot. It was true that not all of the strong races established their strongholds in either the Myriad Spirit City or the Sky Water City. In fact, many of them chose to open up a gathering place in the wilderness of the other shore, and founded their strongholds there. It was dangerous, but it gave them more freedom. For instance, the Pear Hills stronghold in Stage 14 was in the wilderness not far from the Dark region. Since the Pear Hill had settled there, some relatively weak races and even some creatures from the other shore had also moved to the same place. After half a chaotic era had passed, their stronghold had grown to a certain size and formed a small town. The 6 Star Falcons soared up above the town, their huge bodies covered in the darkness. Only the starry gems shone brightly on their chests. If one didn't look carefully, the bright dots in the sky looked just like equally distanced stars, instead of the actual Star Falcons that were flying up above. In the town below, a white-haired ape was observing the 6 stars. The ape came from the White Ape race in Stage 14. The White Ape race used to live in the Sky Water City, but later on they became an enemy of the Star Falcon race due to some conflicts. At last, they were even driven out from the city. In these years, the White Ape race had been working hard to return to the Sky Water City. The ape, however, didn't exactly know about the chaos that had been happening in the Sky Water City over the past few days. He only knew that someone from the Star Falcon race had contacted him and asked for help. If he succeeded, then the whole White Ape race could return to the Sky Water City. It was truly a great opportunity for the White Ape race. This ape had been staying in the small town for a long time, so he had a good relationship with the Pear Hill. Moreover, he had helped some of the souls of light from the Pear Hill when they had been in trouble. When he was done gazing at the 6 stars in the sky, he looked at the stronghold of the Pear Hill and said, "The White Ape race has helped the Pear Hill a lot. Now, it's time for you to repay us." Afterwards, he walked straight into the Pear Hill stronghold. As the Pear Hill members were familiar with the White Ape race, none of them stopped the ape when they saw him. The ape entered the inner area, where he found a member of the Snake Goddess race from the Pear Hill. Her name was Naomi, and she was the leader of the Snake Spirit sect. She had been at the chaotic source realm for over 100 years. Recently, she had returned to Stage 14 to guide the members of the Pear Hill who had just reached the chaotic source realm. "Whitehead, what brings you here?" Naomi asked. The ape, which they called Whitehead, sported a mysterious look. "The other shore key to the Sun Crown Temple in the north has emerged. As far as I know, that temple hasn't been explored for 2 chaotic eras. It's a huge chance," he announced. Naomi was touched upon hearing the ape's words, and she became a little excited. Ever since her members who had recently reached the chaotic source realm got to stage 14, the Pearl also had been short of resources. If she could lead her members to explore this temple in secret, then they would surely be able to resolve their burning needs. But who has the key? Naomi asked. The other shore key to a temple that had been sealed off for countless years would surely be expensive if it had appeared. Just then, Whitehead reached out his fluffy hand and thin lines appeared on his palm. The other shore key is here, but this time the white ape race needs to earn some. Whoever from the Pearl wants to get to the temple has to pay 100,000 soul pills, he explained. Okay, Naomi answered without hesitation. 100,000 soul pills were absolutely a good deal. She waved her tail to summon a woman, who left the other shore and informed the members of the Pearl to return to the other shore as soon as possible. Whitehead secretly cackled in his mind when Naomi agreed so frankly. He didn't care about those soul pills, and the other shore key he spoke of was absolutely fake. In reality, his goal was to deceive her. At Naomi's announcement, the members of the Pearl who were at the chaotic source realm continuously assembled in the stronghold. The majority of them had snake tails and were from the snake goddess race, while the others were humans. As the Pearl members continued to appear, Whitehead also kept an eye on them. The goal of the Star Falcon race was to capture a human woman called Yan. Thus, he needed to ensure that she was on the other shore. At the sight of the dozens of human souls of light that were in the stronghold, Whitehead suddenly smiled and said, "I've heard that many new talents of Pearl have entered the Desire World this time. Congratulations." Naomi felt a bit confused. The creatures on the other shore rarely paid attention to the matters in the source world because they were destined to stay on the other shore their whole lives. Yet, Whitehead appeared to know her race well. Despite her uncertainty, she politely replied, "Yes, they are very talented." "They are promising. Is Yan in the stronghold now?" Whitehead abruptly asked. Now, Naomi was even more confused. Yan had just entered stage 14 not long ago. How did Whitehead know her? Still, she didn't think too much about the ape's intentions. She pointed towards the two human women nearby and said, "She's there." As soon as Yan and Natalie heard that a temple would be opened, they quickly came to the other shore together. Those who had just entered the Desire World were surely eager to get a good other shore token, and of course, Yan and Natalie were no exception. One of the best ways for them to get such other shore tokens was to explore temples. "What's wrong?" Natalie glanced at Naomi and asked. Beside her, Yan blinked and looked at the white-haired ape, as she too felt that something was off. At that moment, Whitehead's body unexpectedly flashed, and a handful of green sand appeared in his hand. He ran over to them and sprinkled the sand on both Yan and Natalie. Swish! Unfortunately, Yan and Natalie didn't even try to dodge. When they realized what had happened, the soul-restraining sand was already firmly stuck on their souls of light. The commotion somewhat stunned all the other souls of light present, including Naomi. Then she angrily hissed, "Whitehead, what are you doing?" It was known that on the other shore, the acts of throwing things like the soul-restraining sand, the soul-interdicting water, and the soul-binding thread to other beings were seen as a declaration of war. The white ape race, however, were in good terms with the Pearl. Thus, Whitehead had no reason to specifically attack Yan and Natalie at all. I'm sorry." Whitehead apologized as he retreated out of the stronghold. At the same time, he waved his long white arms in front of him. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In the blink of an eye, the 6 huge star falcons came down and stood upright behind Whitehead. Their sharp eyes emitted a ferocious and cold aura. As for Whitehead, he just continued to apologize, "I'm sorry, guys. I have to do this for the sake of white ape race. I have to obey them." Some of the members of the Pearl reacted quickly. When the star falcons landed, many souls of light from the Pearl had left the other shore. The others retreated as they wanted, but the soul-restraining sand stopped Yan and Natalie. "The Star Falcon race. We, the Pearl, have no conflict with you. Don't mess around, otherwise," Naomi shrieked. She could have left at her own will, but she stood in front of Yan and Natalie. Phew! Before she could finish her words, a starry sword pierced her soul of light, passing through the space between Yan and Natalie, then finally penetrating the wall of the stronghold. "No, Naomi!" Natalie and Yan screamed as they saw Naomi's soul of light collapse. Chapter 3128, Sent to the Dark Region. The stronghold of the Pearl was very safe, as far as Yan and Natalie knew. It had been a while since they entered the Desire World. Since they had no need to enter the Myriad Spirit City, they never got the chance to come into contact with any of the rather rebellious races on the other shore. All the races in the small town were relatively gentle in peacekeeping. They also treated the souls of light of the Pear Hill as equals. When Yan and Natalie saw the Star Falcons, they were a little worried about their aggressiveness, but never did they expect them to kill Naomi instantly. Their senior's death was far too much for the two. Instead of feeling scared, they were terribly heartbroken. Why? Yan stared blankly at the dispersing soul of light, unable to do a thing. A Star Falcon dashed into the Pear Hill's stronghold and examined the area, finding a few bold members of the Pear Hill standing in the corner. "We don't wish to kill anyone," he said. "Yan Luo is all we want. This has nothing to do with the people of the Pear Hill." "Where is she?" Still processing the situation, Yan was about to answer on instinct, but Natalie stepped forward before she could claim the name. "I am Yan Luo." Natalie didn't want to take the risk. The Star Falcon gave no reason for wanting Yan, but she couldn't let them take her away. Behind her, Yan was stunned speechless. Surprisingly, the Star Falcon took one look at Natalie and burst into booming laughter. "Take these two away." Once the Star Falcon left the stronghold, two wings came in from the outside. Yan and Natalie were taken to the back of a Star Falcon. And so the 6 Star Falcons flew into the air and left the small town. Watching their figures receding in the distance, Whitehead from the White Ape race finally sighed deeply in relief. He still felt guilt, but he had always believed that what he did was for the sake of the White Ape race. By the time the Star Falcon race completed the plan, the White Ape race could return to the Sky Water City and restore their previous glory with the Star Falcon's support. By then, Whitehead would be considered a hero. "Where are we going?" The Star Falcon race is closely related to the Sun Crow race. "Do you know who we are? Do you want the Pear Hill to annihilate the Sun Crow race?" With piercing eyes, Natalie threatened the Star Falcon from atop his back. While the Sun Crow race was also considered a super force, they weren't quite strong enough to fight against the Pear Hill. But no matter what threats Natalie spewed, the Star Falcons didn't seem to pay her any mind. They remained silent throughout the entire journey. Soon, they reached the edge of the dark region. "It's the dark region," Natalie cried out when she saw the vast darkness. Yan raised her head to take a look. By then, she was still numb with sorrow. She couldn't accept Naomi's death. When she was in stage 13, Yan had seen the dark region, but never had she entered it, nor did she know much about it. The area was a complete mystery to her. Even the souls of light and the creatures on the other shore believed they'd surely die if they entered it. Upon reaching the edge of the dark region, the Star Falcons flew down. "What do you want?" Natalie asked, this time, a little more helpless and wary. "We'll take you into the dark region," said a Star Falcon plainly. "Enter the dark region. If you want to kill us, just do it. Why bother sending us in there?" There was some panic in Natalie's voice. She knew that if they entered the dark region, they wouldn't come out alive. Not bothering to say any more, the Star Falcon flapped his wings, materializing 2 fruits. "Swallow them. Absorb them into your souls. With these, you'll survive in the dark region," ordered the Star Falcon. Initially, Natalie had planned to resist. But thinking of the boundless dark region, she figured she had to compromise. Yan, however, didn't resist at all. Once the two of them integrated the darkness fruits into their souls, they found the dark region not as dark as it once was. Their eyes widened as they realized that they could actually see its interior. As the dark region grew clearer, Natalie screamed. Several black monkeys were staring straight at the girls, crowded together near the edge of the dark region. "Head inside." The Star Falcon waved his great wings, and Natalie dashed into the dark region, Yan stumbling behind. Because they didn't eat the darkness fruit, the 6 Star Falcons couldn't see anything in the dark region. But that didn't matter much, they only needed to send Yan into the appointed place. "We must now inform that man in the Myriad Spirits City," one of the Star Falcons said thoughtfully. The Star Falcons couldn't deny how deep their hatred was for Zen. They wanted to chop him to pieces. But both Garth and their leader had been killed by Zen. They understood that they were no match for him. "Who will do it?" he asked once again. They were aware that Yan was Zen's sister. If Zen knew that Yan was in their hands, the one who went to him as a messenger would be risking getting killed. "I'll go," said the shortest Star Falcon. Their race had reached a dead end. Now, all they could do was sacrifice themselves in desperation. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The starry gems in the Star Falcon's chests flickered with brilliant lights. "May the starlight be with you. May the starlight be with you." Once the Star Falcons sent out their blessings, the shortest one flew toward the Myriad Spirits City. Elvenia had been stuck in a coma for an entire day and night before she opened her eyes. She struggled to open her eyes, looking haggard. Naturally, it took great energy to activate the crack in the light. Even the most powerful purified beings couldn't do it as they pleased. Just as Elvenia was struggling to get up, a pair of hands gently held her shoulders down before she heard Zen's voice. Don't move, you just woke up, you're exhausted, you have to have a proper rest. Elvenia's lips quirked up as she heard the guilt in Zen's voice. The moment was rather enjoyable on her end, she was hoping Zen could owe her even more in the future. Before Elvenia could say anything, a guide weasel burst in. Sir, I have something to report. Both Zen and Elvenia frowned at the news. What is it? A star falcon has descended outside the city guard house. He's requesting to see you, replied the guide weasel. A star falcon asked to see me. Zen was stunned. Was the star falcon race ready to admit defeat? Since it had come to this, it was meaningless to admit defeat. Even if Zen wanted to merely let go of the star falcon race, the guide weasel race and the giant race weren't about to let them off so easily. But Zen went straight to the gate anyway. Standing at the gate was the star falcon. Seeing Zen, he said, your sister, Yan, has been sent to the dark region. Chapter 3129, Set Off. What the star falcon had said pierced like a dagger into Zen's chest. His eyes immediately widened, blazing with anger and a thirst for blood. And even though the man who had delivered the message already knew the possibility of death, he couldn't help but tremble at the sight of Zen's change in expression. Initially, Zen had a firm belief that the Pear Hill was a good place for Yan to be taken care of. After all, they had strength that surpassed the Oneness Sky Palace. Even the super forces, like the Sun Crow race, did not dare cross a line with them. However, Zen proved to be a little naive. Because Zen's and Elvenia's corporal bodies were growing to be more and more threatening, the four big races would do anything to get rid of them. Moreover, the connection between Yan and Zen had been revealed when they were in the chaotic source world. That gave the four races an advantage to lure Zen and Elvenia into the dark region. As planned, they attacked Yan even before they proved Thad's identity to be Zen. Their rough, unethical tactics just proved that they were in a hurry to kill him. Several members of the guide weasel race grew worried as they had sensed Zen's strong, powerful aura. They had so many questions. If Zen was a member of the Oneness Sky Palace, didn't that mean his sibling was a member too? And if so, why was she captured by the Star Falcon race at such a critical time? What do you want? Zen asked firmly, but in a hushed tone. Because the Star Falcon race used Yan to threaten him, this probably meant that his sister was safe for the time being. In actuality, taking Yan as a hostage was not the idea of the Star Falcon race, it was the Sun Crow races. That was a problem for Zen, who just wanted to know what it would take for them to release Yan safely. Poor Zen, the Star Falcon scoffed, you should probably ask the Guide Weasel race and the Giants to withdraw their troops first. The Guide Weasel race and the Giants, led by Clyde and Raoul, were headed towards the Skywater City. Because the Star Falcon race had weakened, they were in no place to suppress these races. If these two races stepped foot into the city, it would ultimately lead to the annihilation of the Star Falcon race. If I do so, will you let go of Yan after they retreat? Zen asked, making sure that it was not a trick. If you want to save Yan, you'll have to make your way to the dark region yourself, said the Star Falcon. Zen's eyes narrowed. He sneered at the man before him. Then why would I ask the Guide Weasel race and the Giants to retreat? Though in deep distress, Zen had a point. The initial purpose of taking Yan was to send Zen into the dark region, and nothing else. Asking the two races to retreat was not supposed to be part of the arrangement. Zen, if you don't do that, your sister will die. The Star Falcon hissed, threatening Zen even more. There was a flash of panic in his eyes, but it only lasted for a second. Zen was determined to save his sister by all means. Lowering his head and closing his eyes, Zen thought hard. Then he turned his head saying, notify Clyde and Raoul and tell them that I have asked them to come back. Sir, a Guide Weasel trailed off, hesitant to go through with the orders. Do as I say, Zen ordered, and his voice was tense and stern. The Guide Weasel shuffled off right away, ready to fulfill Zen's order. Afterwards, Zen turned to the Star Falcon and said, I know that your purpose is to send me to the dark region. And even if they don't withdraw the troops, I am certain that my sister won't die. Hearing Zen's words sent the Star Falcon in a state of anxiety. How could he catch a lie that had been so strategically planned out? So, tell me, Zen demanded calmly. Who kidnapped my sister in the dark region? It was the Black Monkeys, the Star Falcon replied, refusing to lie even anymore. Well then, you may go now, Zen uttered without looking back. The other Guide Weasels followed him, and they made their way into the city guard house. At the beginning of his mission, the Star Falcon intended to meet Zen with the idea that he could die. He had no idea that Zen wasn't even going to lay a finger on him. Soon enough, his nervousness eased and he noticed that he had been sweating in fright the whole time. Splash! His sweat dripped. In a hurry, he spread his wings and left the myriad spirits city in a panic. Meanwhile, in the city guard house, Elvenia was concerned as she saw Zen enter with a look of irritation on his face. "What happened?" she asked soothingly. Zen waved the question off and extended his hands towards her. "Hand me the candles and the darkness fruits." Elvenia's eyes widened. "Are you going to the dark region?" Candles and the darkness fruits were the keys to entering the dark region, but she could not comprehend why Zen would want to return to such a horrible place. "Just give them to me," he snapped, "and stop asking so many questions." The last thing he wanted to do was stress out Elvenia, who needed a lot more rest. Zen intended to go to the dark region alone. However, Elvenia would not back down for anything. A cold expression crossed her face and she gripped hard onto her space ring. "Whatever you're going there for, I'll go with you." The ring was in Elvenia's keeping, and Zen would only be able to have it if she let him. Zen narrowed his gaze on her and expressed with all seriousness what had happened outside the city guard house. Being such a smart individual, it took her no time to absorb everything Zen said. The plan was simple. Since the Sun Crow race assumed that creatures of the other shore could not deal with Zen, they were going to have him tortured in the dark region instead. Did they not recall that dark region creatures stand no chance against me? Elvenia chuckled in confidence. Though creatures in the dark region were 1,000 times stronger than those in the light region, she was unafraid of them. She was the bane of the dark region creatures. "Either they don't know about it, or they have other plans for you," Zen pointed out. "Like putting you against another purified being." Apparently, there happened to be another purified being within stage 14. This being was said to be far stronger and more powerful than any ordinary living creature on the other shore. But if that purified being stood on their side, he or she would have already come to kill us, right? Elvenia went on, trying to figure out what would happen. Purified beings had the ability to freely travel through both the light and the dark regions. If they had a purified being on their side, they should not have gone through the trouble to lure Zen and Elvenia into the dark region. Zen was frustrated that he couldn't grasp their plan. "Whatever," he shook it off. "Let's just go to the dark region first. We need to find those black monkeys first." Zen and Elvenia had already come into contact with the monkeys when they were at stage 13. They were chased and attacked by them, and almost died at the hands of those pig-faced monsters. At that time, Zen was weak. He did not have the power to put up a fight against them, but this time, he was different. They were more prepared than ever. About an hour had passed and they went through the ridge in between the heavenly dark mountain and the earthly dark mountain. Eventually, they arrived at the edge of the dark region. When Elvenia was just about to light up the dark region, Zen suddenly lifted his arm and stopped her. "We're here to save my sister," he whispered. "Don't make too much noise." Yan was in the hands of ruthless, unforgiving creatures. If they had found out that he was already in the dark region, they might kill her soon. They had to attack by surprise. Thus, each of them ate a darkness fruit before stepping into the dark region. They had to be stealthy and careful, especially based on their past experience. Elvenia had opened the crack of light before, and all the dark region's creatures within a radius of 100 miles were destroyed. This left the place deserted and burned to a crisp. Zen had seen it with his own eyes that day. Elvenia was stunned to see her power, and the consequences of her actions. It was at that moment that an electric light shocked her mind, and opened a crack in the sky. She fainted when the crack opened, and that was the end of it. Chapter 3130, The Green-Skinned Men. They traveled dozens of miles in the dark region before the surrounding scenery gradually returned to normal. A number of dark plants formed a boundless jungle. Zen and Elvenia made to pass through the dense jungle when the branches of the plants began to shake. One single branch might not be strong, but thousands of branches could entangle even a strong prey to death. These branches were now considering Zen and Elvenia as potential prey and were preparing to attack them. Elvenia's eyes flashed as she glared at the approaching branches. "You're about to turn to ash. Excited, are you?" she asked, venom dripping her voice. These demonic plants were sentient and could think. Elvenia's threat caused them to rapidly shrink away, like ants fleeing in all directions. The plants had formed a clump in the middle of the jungle, making it difficult to cross. But at Elvenia's threat, they began to part, forming a convenient path as they fell to ground. "That's more like it," Elvenia sneered and walked forward, her head held high. Zen smiled and shook his head at her back. It was obvious that these creatures in the dark region were terrified of Elvenia. Once they passed through the dense jungle, they saw dark, high mountains loom up ahead of them. The tops of the mountains seemed to graze the sky, but because of the darkness, they could not tell how high these mountains actually were. The first thing they had to do after entering the dark region was to find the black monkeys. But they were difficult to find since there was no intelligent creature around. Zen and Elvenia traveled for a distance along the mountains, lengths when they spotted fire in the distance. The only thing apart from the great Sanskrit light of a purified being that could produce light in the dark region was a candle. The light that they could now see was probably produced by a candle. They approached the light cautiously and, as they had expected, spotted a candle not far from them. The ignited candle sat in an open space, burning alone. The power of the candlelight could not be compared to that of the great Sanskrit light or the natural light in the light region, but it was still threatening to the creatures in the dark region. Unless they ate the light fruit, they could easily be hurt if they were within the candlelight's range. It seemed like someone had intentionally put this candle here, though they didn't know who and why. Zen and Elvenia remained silent as they hid, observing the candle and its surroundings. It was not long before rustling sounds could be heard through the darkness. A huge cricket-like insect, which was nearly 3 feet tall, jumped out and moved towards the candle. Going by the fearless way in which it entered the candle's periphery, the insect seemed not to be afraid of the candle. The gentle yellow light of the candle began to work on the insect, causing it to erode more with every passing second. In no time, the surface of the insect's body had become mottled, and its thin limbs had fallen off its body. It wasn't long before it fell with a thud in the candlelight. The candlelight still worked on the big insect's body. If no one interfered, it would eventually disappear in the candlelight. But a small loop of rope suddenly shot out and wrapped around the insect's body and pulled it out of the range of the candlelight. All this happened very quickly, as if done by someone that was quite skilled. Before Zen could react, the big insect had already been pulled into darkness. There must be an intelligent creature behind. Let's go and find it. Elvenia whispered into Zen's ear. The intelligent creatures living in the dark region must know the whereabouts of the black monkeys. Elvenia made to walk towards where the insect had disappeared, but Zen reached out and grabbed her hand. The risks in the dark region were much greater than in the light region. They had to be vigilant no matter what. He said, "Let's wait and see first." They stayed where they were, keeping an eye on the candlelight. Minutes later, they could hear more rustling sounds from the grass. This time it was a big black centipede that was about a dozen feet long that was creating the sound. The centipede raised its long slender body to observe the candlelight before unhesitatingly crawling forward towards it. It met the same end as the cricket-like insect. A loop of rope shot out again and tied itself around the body of the centipede before dragging it towards the grass. The big centipede was tenacious and struggled as it went. While the big centipede struggled, Zen followed the course of the rope and spotted a big, dark green hand pulling at it from the grass. He didn't know which race this creature was from, but he was sure it wasn't one of the black monkeys. They're just using the candlelight to catch weak insects. Nothing interesting here, Elvenia said, bored. Let's go around it then, Zen said, nodding. They weren't out to hurt anyone and shouldn't be viewed as enemies. They just wanted to make some inquiries. Just as Zen stood up, something in the sky began to buzz. Dozens of huge wasps circled in the air above them and shot towards Zen and Elvenia. Their bodies were colored brilliantly, making it obvious that they were highly poisonous. Hide behind me, Zen pulled Elvenia behind him. He then turned and stretched out a hand to slap at the wasps. His strike was so quick that the poisonous wasps were immediately smashed into pieces. They had barely dealt with the poisonous wasps when they found giant spiders and footlong colored centipedes making their way to them on the grass nearby. Zen was not afraid of these poisonous insects, but the appearance of these strange insects caused Elvenia's hair to stand on end. Had she not been afraid of alerting the enemy, she would have released massive amounts of great Sanskrit light to burn off all the poisonous insects in this area. Zen and Elvenia had no choice but to retreat from their hiding place. The moment they did so, 2 green-skinned men rushed out of the grass, moving nimbly as they did. They had dark red hair that looked like weeds and looked terrifying. The men had emerged, throwing loops of rope towards Zen and Elvenia. Zen and Elvenia looked at each other. A tacit understanding passed between them and they did not dodge the rope loops. The green-skinned men were overjoyed to see that their targets were easily trapped. But before they could tie up the ropes, they felt an irresistible force coming from the other end of the ropes. They were being dragged towards Zen and Elvenia. The 2 green-skinned men realized that something was amiss and were about to drop to the ground, intending to jump into the grass. But the moment they did so, they felt two tiny rays of white light flashing past the corners of their eyes. Sharp pain pinched at their feet. Looking downwards, they discovered that the light rays had pierced their feet and they were now firmly nailed to the ground. Chapter 3131, The Dark Nether Bugs. The two light rays were condensed at high speed. To the creatures in the light region, they were almost harmless, but to the creatures in the dark region, they were lethal. The two green-skinned men stayed frozen to their spot, unable to move at all. If they attempted to flee, the light rays would slice them in half. Elvinia walked forward with a grim expression. She was about to ask why the two dared to attack them, but abruptly stopped in her tracks. Turning to smile at Zen, she said sweetly, "You ask." Zen nodded. Taking a step forward to face the two green-skinned men, he said, "We're just passing by. Why did you attack us?" The two green-skinned men looked Zen up and down. Compared to Elvinia, this man didn't look so scary. One of the green-skinned men opened his mouth and squeaked. He gestured with his hands, trying to explain himself. But Zen shook his head, unable to understand a word he said. "You don't speak the human language?" Zen frowned. The human language was commonly used both on the other shore and in the source world. It was quite rare for a creature to be unable to speak it. "If you don't speak the human language, then you are of no value to us. Go to perdition." Elvinia spat, her eyes flashing coldly. While Elvinia was very conscious of her image around Zen, these two green-skinned hooligans were getting on her nerves. Buzz, buzz, countless light awls extended from Elvinia's fingertips, like shining fingernails. Just as they were about to hit one of the green-skinned men, he hurriedly cried out, "Don't kill me! Don't kill me!" Elvinia stopped. Turning again to smile at Zen, she said sweetly, "You ask." Zen nodded, but he was secretly amused by Elvinia's behavior. He could tell that Elvinia was trying to make a good impression on him. "So, you do speak the human language. Tell me, why did you try to attack us secretly?" Zen asked once more. "We're insect catchers," one of the green-skinned men answered. "We are trying to catch the dark nether bug. If you stay here, you will scare it away. Then our tribe will be darned." The two green-skinned men were skilled at catching insects. After setting up a candle, they had used a special method to cover up their own auras. If other insects showed up, they would have captured them too, but their ultimate goal was to catch the dark nether bug. "Please let us go. We really need to catch the dark nether bug," another green-skinned man pleaded pitifully. "Withdraw the light," Zen said to Elvinia. Elvinia rolled her eyes and reluctantly tapped her finger. The light that pinned down the legs of the two green-skinned men vanished in an instant. The two green-skinned men let out a sigh of relief. But before letting them go, Zen asked, "I want to inquire about something. In the dark region." As Zen spoke, suddenly a wind began to blow from the gloomy forest nearby. The crowns of the trees swayed ominously, and a strong scent of blood permeated the air. "What's that smell?" A strange expression appeared on Zen's and Elvinia's faces when they smelled the blood. As the metallic scent filled their nostrils, their heartbeat quickened. For some reason, they felt a hint of desire for that blood. "It's the dark nether bug. Oh my goodness, it's coming." The two green-skinned men's faces turned ghastly pale. One of them flipped his hand, and a bamboo tube appeared. Pouring some brown powder from it onto his palm, he begged Zen and Elvinia, "The dark nether bug is the key to our survival. It has a keen sense of smell. If it smells you, it will flee immediately." Raising his powder-covered palm to the two humbly, he asked, "Please, let me sprinkle this powder on your bodies." The other green-skinned man bit his lip anxiously, while eyeing the gloomy forest before them. After a while, Zen slowly nodded. Swish, swish. After the green-skinned man sprinkled the brown powder, he asked Zen and Elvinia to hide in the grass on the other side. In a low voice, he whispered, "I don't know what you two want to know, but after we capture the dark nether bug, we'll definitely oblige you." As soon as he finished speaking, the trees in the dense forest in the distance parted to both sides. A bug emerged from the forest. The bug was completely white, with a crystal-clear shell. Through the transparent shell, they could see its blood vessels pumping steadily. The bug was not big, roughly half a person high. But even so, it was releasing such a powerful aura as it crawled forward. The moment their eyes landed on the bug, the strange feeling in Zen's and Elvinia's hearts grew stronger. Strangely enough, their stomachs began to growl, as though they were starving. "It's strange." Zen was very surprised. He had long forgotten the feeling of hunger, since he had stopped eating completely. Yet now, he stared at the bug as though it was the most delicious thing his heart desired. But he quickly managed to suppress this weird feeling. Elvinia, on the other hand, was different. Her eyes were fixed on the white bug, as though it had captured her soul. Opening her mouth slightly, she drawled as though in a trance, I want to eat that bug. As she spoke, she was about to stand up, but Zen quickly pulled her down. Elvinia, what's wrong with you? Hush, the two green-skinned men said anxiously. Because of this, the dark nether bug that had been slowly crawling forward abruptly stopped. Raising its head to survey its surroundings, its beady eyes darted about vigilantly. After a while, it let its guard down and continued crawling slowly towards the candle. One of the two green-skinned men held a long and thin bamboo pole, and the other clutched a rope. Once the dark nether bug crawled into the range of the candlelight, they were ready to catch it. Zen eyed Elvinia worriedly. She was still fixated on the dark nether bug. The smell of blood emanating from the bug was a fatal attraction to her. If it weren't for Zen, she might have pounced on the dark nether bug by now. It's almost there. Get ready, one of the green-skinned men hissed in a low voice. The other green-skinned man clutched the rope tightly in anticipation. Just as he was about to throw the rope at the bug, the forest trees swayed to the side once more. 3 more dark nether bugs emerged, each one twice as big as the first one and as tall as an adult human. When the two green-skinned men saw the 3 dark nether bugs, their expressions fell. Their plan had been to catch only one dark nether bug. But now, with the addition of 3 more, the situation suddenly became extremely complicated. Chapter 3132, The Enraged Bugs. These dark nether bugs were powerful. As trained insect catchers, the green-skinned men were very familiar with the habits of all kinds of insects in the dark region. Those ghost-faced centipedes and the cold earth bugs might have looked ferocious and were highly toxic, but the insect catchers always had ways to deal with them. The dark nether bugs were white and plump, and didn't seem to be harmful. But looks can be deceiving. Their strength alone was enough to be ranked first among all the insects in the dark region. It was difficult for an insect catcher to capture even one dark nether bug, but now, faced with 4 bugs, they were at a loss. The two green-skinned men stood upright in the grass, with miserable expressions. It seemed they had no intention of making a move. Why not take action? Zen asked them through his chaotic energy. One of them faced Zen piteously and said, the 3 other dark nether bugs are adults. They are incredibly powerful. If we tried to catch that larva, we'd be killed for sure. The two green-skinned men had painstakingly gone to great lengths to prepare for this hunt. And now that they had managed to attract a dark nether bug, they could do nothing about it. Naturally, they were upset. While they were busy feeling sorry for themselves, Elvinia suddenly cut in and said, just do what you need to do. I'll take care of the other 3 dark nether bugs for you. The two green-skinned men couldn't believe their ears. This powerful being who, minutes prior, had almost killed them, was now going to help them. This woman was able to release dazzling light, which could penetrate the darkest corners of the dark region. If she could help them deal with the dark nether bugs, they would be more than happy. Zen, on the other hand, frowned slightly. Ever since the dark nether bugs appeared, Elvinia had been acting strangely. Her eyes clearly showed a strong desire for the dark nether bugs. Previously, Zen also had a strange appetite for them, but the appetite soon disappeared after he restrained himself. Now, it seemed Elvinia couldn't control her appetite. But I have one request. Elvinia's eyes flashed hungrily. The 3 dark nether bugs will belong to me. Of course, you can have them. One of the green-skinned creatures hastily replied. Their goal was only to catch one dark nether bug. Even though capturing more dark nether bugs would benefit them greatly, it was beyond their capacity and they were satisfied with just one. Da-da-da, the smaller dark nether bug sped up and barged into the area illuminated by the candlelight. The candlelight usually eroded all the creatures in the dark region, but the moment its light hit the dark nether bug, something unexpected happened. Under the pale yellow candlelight, some part of the skin of the dark nether bug had been corroded, and at the same time, it began to shrink. The blood vessels in its transparent body began to glow with bright red light. It seemed to have absorbed a portion of the candlelight into its body. When the dark nether bug got close to the candlelight, it stopped and let itself bathe in the light. The blood streaks in its body shone brightly. The other 3 dark nether bugs followed suit. They stopped after they entered the area of the candlelight and enjoyed bathing in it. The 2 green-skinned creatures exchanged glances then nodded. One of them used his hand to put some medicinal powder with strong spicy aroma onto the rope. Suddenly, he threw the spicy-smelling rope towards the smallest dark nether bug in the candlelight. His throw was surprisingly accurate. The loop instantly tightened around the head of the dark nether bug. After realizing it was caught, the smallest dark nether bug struggled desperately. Even though it was nothing but a larva, it was strong enough to make the two green-skinned men struggle to restrain it. But as the spicy medicinal powder on the loop took effect, the bug gradually stopped struggling. Its body grew numb and stiff, till it lay motionless on the ground. The two green-skinned creatures quickly reeled in the rope, dragging the bug through the grass. Woo! When the other three dark nether bugs discovered that their littlest companion had been captured, the blood streaks in their bodies spread furiously. The original white, fat bugs turned to blood red in an instant. After the two green-skinned creatures put the dark nether bug into a special bag, they cautioned Elvinia, "Master, the three dark nether bugs have already reached a furious state. Please be careful." They were well aware how terrible it would be to feel the wrath of a furious dark nether bug. As they spoke, they clutched the bag containing their prize tightly, ready to flee if need be. However, Zen put his hand on the bag. "We can deal with the three dark nether bugs, but you two can't leave now. Don't forget what you promised." Zen still had to ask them about the black monkeys. How could he let them go now? The two green-skinned creatures sighed. If they stayed, they already knew the terrible outcome if the two humans were killed by the dark nether bugs. Now that they finally caught the dark nether bug, it was only natural they wanted to escape. But with Zen's hand firmly clutching the bag, they found that they couldn't move at all. While Zen was speaking, Elvinia had already rushed out. It was more accurate to say that it was this physical body of the purified being that wanted to devour the bugs than Elvinia's own desire to do so. The consciousness that this body naturally emitted affected her own judgment, which made her believe that such desire was generated from her own instinct. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The blood streaks that were flowing within the bodies of the dark nether bugs trembled, then the bugs suddenly spurted out rays of blood radiance from their backs. 10 rays shot towards Elvinia at lightning speed. Elvinia hardly expected that the blood radiance would come at her so quickly. Gritting her teeth, she tumbled on the ground, having narrowly avoided that sudden strike of blood radiance. However, before she could recover, one ray of blood radiance shot through her left shoulder. The body of the purified being was pierced clean through, leaving a hole the size of a fist on her shoulder. For a moment, blood dripped from the hole. "Elvinia!" Zen cried anxiously. He had been under the impression that Elvinia was powerful enough to deal with these bugs effortlessly. He never expected she'd get injured. No wonder the two green-skinned insect catchers were so afraid. It turned out that once these white and fat dark nether bugs were enraged, they were extremely powerful beings in the dark region. Just as Zen was about to rush into the battle, Elvinia held up her hand, indicating she was fine. Suddenly, she bent down and raised both her hands. White light beams shot out from her hands, forming two swords with blades hundreds of feet long. Clapping her hands together, the two swords of white light slashed at the three dark nether bugs before her. With Elvinia's strength, she could have easily destroyed these dark nether bugs by simply using the great Sanskrit light. But she had concerns. On the one hand, she was determined to eat the dark nether bugs. If the bugs melted and evaporated under the great Sanskrit light, she would have nothing to eat. On the other hand, the great Sanskrit light would spread far away in the dark region, which might alert other ferocious beasts. Phew, phew, the white light swords were formless and they could extend or contract according to Elvinia's will. The speed at which they slashed at the ground was astonishing. Before the three dark nether bugs could react, their bodies were swept by the long white light swords. In the next moment, they lay on the ground lifeless. Upon a closer look, Zen could see a thin crack on their bodies. They had been sliced in half so cleanly. When the two green-skinned creatures saw that Zen wanted to rush up to help, they thought of seizing the opportunity to escape, but before they even had a chance to take one step forward, they witnessed Elvinia easily killing the three adult dark nether bugs. Both of their jaws dropped to the ground. Who was this woman? Chapter 3133, The Food for Purified Beings. The green-skinned men were the weakest creatures in the dark region. They had little understanding of how harmful the light rays were. As expected, light rays could erode their bodies easily. On the other hand, while the dark nether bugs were very powerful creatures in the dark region, they were not very intelligent. The green-skinned men would lure the dark nether bugs with candlelight and then capture them with overpowering drugs. Otherwise, they couldn't even face the dark nether bugs head-on. They would have to retreat. But Elvinia had cut down 3 powerful dark nether bugs in an instant. The 2 green-skinned men were astonished. Elvinia stepped into the range of the candlelight without hesitation after killing the dark nether bugs. Be careful, the candlelight, the light will erode you. The 2 green-skinned men called out to Elvinia urgently. They had earlier wanted to run away, afraid they might get killed by the dark nether bugs. But there was no need to retreat now that the threat had been extinguished. Now, they wanted to stay to get on Zen and Elvinia's good graces. The green-skinned men had never seen creatures from the light region before. For them, everything from the light region was incomprehensible and untouchable. Both Elvinia and Zen were from the light region, so of course light did not harm them. The green-skinned men realized this as Elvinia stepped into the light. What? She is unfazed by the candlelight. Has she eaten the light fruit? They stared wide-eyed, marveling at Elvinia. Except for the dark nether bugs, they knew no other creature who could remain unscathed by the candlelight. Even the ground itself would be corroded if the light shone long enough. But here came this woman, stepping into the light like it was nothing. Elvinia's eyes were fixed at the dead bodies of the dark nether bugs as she stepped into the illuminated area. The strong smell of blood filled her nose. The temptation grew even more irresistible. She strode toward one of the bodies, buried her hand into it, and pulled out blood vessels. Before Elvinia could put them into her mouth, Zen quietly appeared by her side, staying her hand. "What are you doing?" Elvinia asked in confusion. Zen shook his head. "I know you want to eat this, but try to hold off until we're certain it's safe," he said. After all, they had no idea where the dark nether bugs came from and whether they were poisonous or not. One couldn't just consume them carelessly. But, a look of pained frustration crossed Elvinia's face. Her bodily instincts were telling her these dark nether bugs were her food. But Zen's words made her snap out of it. How could she eat such disgusting things? Elvinia felt torn between impulse and reason. At that moment, one of the green-skinned men stood at the edge of the illuminated area. "The dark nether bugs are inedible. They are fatally poisonous to us, especially their blood. If we eat it, we bleed to death," he warned. Hearing this, Zen's resolve to stop Elvinia just grew stronger. Elvinia put down the bloody mess, but she continued to look wistfully at it, unwilling to part from it. She looked miserable, as if she had just been deprived of the most delicious food. "Well, if you can't eat the dark nether bugs, why do you capture them?" Zen asked, turning to the two green-skinned men. They had worked so hard on the dark nether bugs' capture. They must have some value to them. "These bugs are for the royal monkey race. Of course we can't eat them. Even if they were for us, we wouldn't dare eat them," one of the green-skinned men explained. "The royal monkey race?" Zen raised his eyebrows slightly. "You mean the black monkeys in the dark region?" When the green-skinned men heard Zen's description, their faces turned pale. "Don't call them that, they'll kill you," one of them hissed anxiously. It seemed that the royal monkey race was quite influential in the dark region. The green-skinned men were terrified of them even when they weren't around. Zen frowned. "Then what will the royal monkey race do with the dark nether bugs? Are they the ones who eat them?" "Of course they don't eat them either," one of the green-skinned men said. "The dark nether bugs are highly poisonous to all living creatures, except to our stage ruler, for whom they are a delicacy. That is why we have to turn in the dark nether bugs we capture to the royal monkey race." "Your stage ruler?" Zen and Elvinia shot each other a look. "Yes, the most powerful being in the whole world." A look of piety crossed the green-skinned men's faces. The green-skinned men were natives in the dark region. They didn't know much about the outside world. The dark region was their entire world. They had no idea of the existence of the other shore or its stages. Neither did they know of the source world. In their minds, the stage ruler was the most powerful existence, and therefore, the one god. Although they were coerced to capture dark nether bugs for offerings, their resentment only extended to the royal monkey race, who made the direct demands. They had no hatred for their stage ruler at all. But Zen and Elvinia knew that this stage ruler was nothing but a purified being in a stage of the other shore. Since the stage ruler could eat the dark nether bugs, most likely, so could Elvinia. Seeing Elvinia's eyes brighten up at this realization, Zen shook his head again. "You can store these dark nether bugs in your space ring first. Once we confirm they are safe to consume, I would let you." If the stage ruler constantly needed to consume the dark nether bugs, it probably meant they were good for purified beings. But they had to be sure. Once they verified this, Zen himself would recommend Elvinia consume them. It took Elvinia a great deal of effort to suppress her instincts. She activated the space ring and waved it lightly over the bodies, which were immediately absorbed. The green-skinned men had never seen a space ring before. They were once again dumbfounded when the carcasses disappeared. Once the bodies were stored away, the smell of blood also gradually disappeared. Before long, Elvinia felt a little better, the impulse having subsided. Zen stared steadily at the green-skinned men. "Do you bring the captured dark nether bug to the royal monkey race yourselves?" "No," one of the green-skinned men answered, shaking his head. "We're not allowed to enter their territory. The royal monkeys will come pick up the dark nether bug tomorrow. That's why our insect master race has deployed hundreds of insect catchers. We will be in great trouble if we can't deliver, the other green-skinned man continued. For the royal monkeys, the insect master race's lives had no value at all. All they were good for, they thought, was catching the dark nether bugs. Chapter 3134, Royal Monkeys. Since Zen found the clues regarding the black monkeys, he did everything he could to not let the opportunity slip through his fingers. Immediately, he proposed on accompanying the two green-skinned creatures. Unaware of the ongoing feud between Zen and the black monkeys, the two creatures happily agreed to his offer with gratitude. Because the creatures were familiar with the area, not a single dangerous encounter occurred throughout the journey with them leading the group. Zen even managed to learn more about the insect master race through them. The insect master race was a low-level race in the dark region. They lived by catching, raising, and taming insects. The two green-skinned creatures were insect catchers. Once they brought them back, they'd forward them to experts known as insect raisers that would be responsible for rearing them. After a certain period, they would then be relayed to the expert insect tamers. The insects that had previously attacked Zen and Elvenia were the ones that the insect masters had tamed. Mercer, the smaller green-skinned creature, and Miller, the taller one of the two, were brothers. They were elated knowing that they successfully and safely captured a dark nether bug. Once they brought it back for their entire race to see, they'd be welcomed and hailed as heroes by the whole insect master race. After they advanced along the Black Mountain Range for 2 hours, there was a huge crater in front of them. And in the crater, there were some messy steps. As they descended to the base of the rickety-looking staircase, they were met with densely packed caves that flanked them on both sides. Numerous green-skinned creatures slipped in and out of the caves alongside numerous insects. These insects came in various, strange shapes and had vicious looks plastered on all their faces. Despite that, they were all obedient in this call. Once Miller and Mercer made their entrance, they lifted the bag they brought with pride and shouted in unison, "We've captured a dark nether bug. We've caught one." Instantly, all the green-skinned creatures dropped what they were doing and looked towards the duo's direction. The call had been enveloped in a deep depression. The royal monkey race was looming over everyone's heads like a guillotine ready to slaughter anyone who disobeyed. Over the past few days, the insect catchers failed to capture a dark nether bug. If they still didn't catch one tomorrow, they would have nothing worthy to offer the royal monkey race. 5 years ago, a similar situation occurred wherein no one could successfully capture a dark nether bug. As punishment, the royal monkey race slaughtered nearly half of the insect master race. This time, failure might mean the total annihilation of their entire race. With Miller and Mercer's successful capture, everyone in the call cheered with joy and relief. Numerous green-skinned creatures emerged from the caves to gather around the duo for a closer look. As the two of them untied the bag, the dark nether bug was revealed, barely mature, sleeping soundly, and totally unaware of the situation. Roar, howl, no one knew who first started the roar. Wherever it came from, it managed to trigger all the green-skinned creatures to roar as well, a deafening howl reverberating along the cave walls and into the valley. With the roar continuing, a few of the green-skinned creatures came up with a black plate onto which they carefully placed the snoozing dark nether bug and then they carried it away. By then, Mercer silenced the entire call with a quick wave of his hand. Now, he began to speak, "We are saved thanks to these two guests. Let us prepare a nice treat for them." Everyone began to cheer loudly once more. All of this noise didn't sit well with Elvenia. In fact, she wanted to drag Zen away right then and there and leave. They came here to get more information about the black monkeys, not to get stuck and witness the lives of a race in the lower class. Zen pulled Elvenia aside to stop her from leaving. "We're not leaving," he informed her with a shake of his head. "We're staying here until tomorrow." Realizing her pouting was useless, she finally gave in to his orders and agreed to stay. The insect master race concurred that a grand feast must be held to entertain Zen and Elvenia. To their dismay and horror, all of the meals served were anything but appetizing, filled with bugs, larvae, and eggs that no human would consume unless they were desperate. Zen politely refused each offer they made. Here in the dark region, the transition from day to night wasn't conspicuous. As outsiders to the dark region, Zen and Elvenia barely noticed when dawn turned to dusk, unlike the insect masters. Silence suddenly passed among all the insect masters. Both Zen and Elvenia ate a darkness fruit in secret as they waited quietly in the dark. 8 hours later, the sound of sudden, heavy footsteps came from the other side. Clack 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 clack, they sounded like hoofs. Zen squinted and raised his head towards the direction where the sound came from. A band of black monkeys riding on horseback came into view. The black monkey that led the group gently pulled his horse's mane. This caused the horse to neigh loudly and raise its chest and hooves to the sky. A bright, red light burst from the hooves just as the horse brought them back down to the ground, right on the edge of the call. Bang! As the entire call began to shake under the power, the two caves directly below the horse began to collapse. All the green-skinned creatures that resided in the caves were now trapped underneath the debris. As the tremors began to worsen, all of the green-skinned creatures came out of hiding. Flustered and frightened, they all diverted their attention towards the creatures riding on horseback who were responsible for this destruction, the royal monkey race. A few of the green-skinned creatures dropped to their knees and bowed towards the royal monkeys, hoping that would help to slightly suppress their rage. "Have you caught the bug we wanted?" the royal monkey at the helm asked in a high-pitched voice. "Yes, we have, Master Royal Monkey." A group of green-skinned creatures momentarily left to retrieve the black plate and carry it towards the royal monkeys. The plate was now decorated and in the middle of the plate appeared the fairly young dark nether bug, still sound asleep. They climbed up the slope on the side of the call as they delivered their offering. The royal monkey glanced at it and said, "One isn't enough. I want two." "Two? For many years, one is enough. How come this time we have to hand in two?" "But we only caught one dark nether bug." The green-skinned creatures' faces turned pale. It was useless trying to reason with these monkeys. Already, they were imagining in their minds the consequences that they would bestow on their race. "This time is different. Our stage ruler is ravenous. What, can't you offer another one?" A hint of coldness could be felt in the royal monkey's voice now. The royal monkeys thought that these green-skinned creatures were useless now. Why keep them alive when they could easily reproduce hundreds or thousands more incompetent beings into this world? If they couldn't hand in one more dark nether bug, then that would give enough reason for them to kill these creatures off. An eerie silence fell over the green-skinned creatures, fearing that a single sound uttered would just enrage the royal monkey even further. No one dared to answer his question. Miller and Mercer also looked anxious. There were 3 dark nether bugs in Elvinia's hands, but the stage ruler only ate living dark nether bugs and would not touch any dead ones. If only they'd known this would happen, they would have stopped Elvinia from killing all of them. Oh, how they wished to turn the tables right then and there. Neither of them knew that even if they had 2 in their hands, the royal monkeys would still require them to offer a third one. As the old saying went, he who has a mind to beat his dog will easily find his stick. Just as all of the green-skinned creatures were about to give up, Zen's voice floated up from the bottom of the call. "I have what you want, another dark nether bug." Chapter 3135, Punishment. Cold sweats trickled down the foreheads of Miller and Mercer in response to their growing anxiety after they heard Zen's words. Zen would have to pay the consequences with his life if he were to present the royal monkey race with the dead dark nether bug. Giving in to his worries, Mercer nudged lightly at Zen's shoulder and spoke in a hurried voice, "Friend, what they want is a living dark nether bug, not a dead one." Zen smiled faintly and whispered back to him, "Don't worry. I am talking about the living dark nether bug. Do you have a living dark nether bug?" Mercer's eyes widened as he took a step back. His gaze fell on Elvinia, who smirked and gave her space ring a confident tap. Soon, a dark nether bug the size of half a mortal fell from it and planted itself on the ground. Where on earth did she get a hold of the dark nether bug? Mercer and Miller stood with their heads tilted to the side as they displayed conflicted expressions of shock and confusion. As far as they remembered, the 3 dark nether bugs that were the size of an adult were killed. Moreover, they remembered that both Zen and Elvinia had no idea of what the dark nether bug was. Then how were they able to catch one? There was something else that made them suspicious about the whole scenario. As they studied the dark nether bug before them, they realized it was not drugged to remain as calm as it was. Normally, this would contradict with its usual irritable nature. Why was it displaying its utmost obedience now? "Don't ask any questions. Just hand it over," Zen whispered in a low tone that was only audible to them. Despite their doubt reigning over their existence, Mercer and Miller obediently placed the dark nether bug on the iron plate. Then they crawled out from the foot of the call and sent it on its way to the royal monkeys. Since Zen and Elvinia kept their appearances disguised, the royal monkeys were oblivious of their presence. With a quick scan, the head of the royal monkeys studied the dark nether bug and pouted in disappointment. A royal monkey stationed beside him received the dark nether bug with careful hands. With a cold snort, the head turned around and left with his subordinates. Demanding a second dark nether bug was supposed to be an excuse for the royal monkey race to obliterate the insect master race. However, they never expected the insect master race to possess one. Since they couldn't ask for a third one, they had no other option but to retreat. After the royal monkey had led his team for a certain distance, he suddenly looked around and shouted, "Zimba! Linus, respond to my call. I'm right here, I'm here." After hearing his command, two tall black monkeys riding on horseback appeared from both sides, each burly and strong in appearance. "Those insect masters have caught 2 dark nether bugs, but they intended to hide one from us. It is unforgivable. As a form of punishment, I want you to dispose of half of them." The royal monkey snarled in a cold voice devoid of all emotions. "Your wish is my command, sir." Without hesitation, Zimba and Linus rode their horses and headed towards the call where the insect masters resided, each in charge of 6 royal monkeys. As they watched the royal monkeys leave their territory, the insect masters' tensed nerves relaxed as they loosened their stiff bodies and let out a sigh of relief. They were certain they would have died today had it not been for Zen's intervention when he brought out the dark nether bug. Naturally, they eyed him up with gleaming eyes filled with gratitude. With the assistance of others, a respectable insect raiser approached Zen as he walked out of his cave. When he stood before him, he lowered his gaze, knelt down with humility and said, "Thank you for saving our race. We are deeply grateful." "Don't mention it." Zen held up the insect raiser to turn his gaze towards him and continued, "As far as I could tell, the royal monkey race was desperately searching for an excuse to finish you off. Although you avoided it for now, you might not be so lucky next time." As if Zen had struck a nerve with his comment, uncontrollable tears flooded the eyes of the insect raiser as he wept bitterly. "We are no match for them in terms of competence. What else could we do except letting them slaughter us?" Continually overshadowed by the overpowering presence of the royal monkey race, the insect master race felt helpless and miserable. The royal monkey race could kill them as they saw fit. Mercer seized the chance and inquired Zen about his previous doubts. "Where did you get that dark nether bug? As far as I can tell, you shouldn't have any in your possession at all." Despite thinking on it long and hard, Mercer and Miller couldn't figure out how Zen was able to pull out a living dark nether bug to present to the royal monkey race. Of course, Zen was not going to lay it all bare to them. At their puzzled expressions, he let out a playful chuckle. He planned to diffuse their curiosity with a perfunctory reply when suddenly, the vibrant noise of hooves clattering against the ground of the call reverberated in his ears and alerted him. Gradually, the sounds of galloping horses approached them at a steady speed as they listened on carefully. The once relaxed atmosphere tensed up once more. Their heartbeats thumped in unison with the sounds of the hooves. As if they were struck by something that left them in a jolt, their expressions shifted visibly. Not long after, a dozen royal monkeys perching atop their horses stood in a formation at the edge of the call. Leading the march from the front, Zimba shouted with an authoritative voice, "Our general has given an order. The insect master race had the intention to hide the dark nether bug. This crime cannot be forgiven, and thus half of you will be killed as a form of punishment." Zimba's loud and clear declaration echoed around the walls of the call and announced itself in various frequencies as it bounced back in the ears of the insect masters. Upon hearing this, the faces of all the insect masters turned as white as a sheet as they reflected fear and vulnerability. They never expected the return of the royal monkeys after they had dealt with them and gave them the dark nether bugs. All insect masters must come to the valley to accept their punishment. Zimba scorned above the call in a stern tone. In the eyes of the royal monkey race, the insect master race was insignificant and inferior. They viewed them as cowards who lacked the guts to retaliate against them. They used their weakness as a means to force them to obey their orders. The royal monkeys didn't even bother to kill them in the call. Instead, they ordered the insect masters to obediently come on their own to face their consequences. The insect masters in the call remained glued to the ground. None of them showed any signs of movement to approach the royal monkeys. They didn't wish to voluntarily walk into the clutches of death that seemed to be inviting them in the face of the royal monkeys. "It seems you wish to die together as a group. All right then, let me fulfill it for you." Linus roared as his glare became sharp. He dismounted from the horse and flashed a long and sharp spear-like stick in his hand. Still rooted in their respective spots out of trauma, the insect masters began to tremble in fear at the sight of an angry Linus. At this moment, Zen's voice echoed in their ears as he said, "Just hold on a second." Zimba and Linus were alerted as Zen made his presence known. They immediately recognized the voice. It was the same voice that declared it had a dark nether bug. As Zen and Elvinia remained out of sight, they concluded Zen to be one of the insect masters. But when the pair made their sudden appearance, the royal monkeys in the ranks felt slightly stunned. "Who are you?" Linus asked as he scanned Zen from head to toe. The insect masters watched Zen nervously as if he were their last ray of hope in terms of survival. He had just swooped in to save them by averting the dark nether bug crisis single-handedly, so they naturally hoped he would have other methods up his sleeve to persuade the royal monkeys to leave once more. Although deep down, they had a feeling it was just their wishful thinking. As if annoyed by the obvious question, Zen let out an exasperated sigh and spoke indifferently, "If you had left with the other royal monkeys, you would have lived long enough to see the next day. It's a pity you chose to return only to seek your own death. Don't blame me for that." The dark nether bug Zen had offered to them wasn't the real deal. In fact, it was the shape-shifting spirit. Back in the iron house, Zen had picked up the black box and allowed the shape-shifting spirit into it. Initially, he had planned to release it in the dark region. But now, Zen was growing impatient in pursuit of getting his sister back, so he was left with no other choice. Since the royal monkey race had demanded a second dark nether bug, Zen materialized the shape-shifting spirit into a dark nether bug to act as a replacement. In the beginning, the shape-shifting spirit was hesitant in going by the plan, but it didn't have the strength to oppose Zen and thus caved under pressure. At the same time, as a preventive measure, Zen asked Elvinia to leave a soul mark on its body so they could later track its location and retrieve it. But like the insect master race, he didn't expect the royal monkeys to return so soon. When Zimba, Linus, and the other royal monkeys heard Zen's threat, their faces revealed a hint of mockery as they struggled to suppress their laughter. Only a few creatures dared to speak to them in this tone in the dark region of stage 14. They wouldn't have believed it had they not heard it with their own ears. "What did you say? Seek our own death? Foolish human, it's you who's courting your own death." With a fit of mocking laughter, a conniving smile stretched across Linus' face as he jumped up using his powerful legs as a boost with the long stick in his hand. The long stick circled in midair and hacked down towards Zen's head. Chapter 3136, Follow Zen. Until now, the other royal monkeys remained seated on the horseback as their eyes cast playful looks below. At the top of their group was Linus. The impact of the blow was enough to pulverize Zen into bits of flesh. Meanwhile, the insect masters immediately felt frightened and scampered away in all directions when they saw Linus jump down. "Run, right now," the old insect raiser shouted at Zen. He ran towards Zen's direction as he yelled, and then pushed the latter away in order to take the blow instead. Yet, all the insect masters were very clear that no matter what they did, Zen and Elvinia would definitely die. Still, Zen held on to the old insect razor with one hand, and reached upward with the other. When Linus saw that Zen had tried to grab his long stick with his bare hand, he couldn't help but laugh mockingly. Zen was a lunatic. Not only was this guy from nowhere so arrogant, but he was also stupid. This blow is enough to smash him into a pile of mud. How dare he take it with his hand? While Linus thought about it, the long stick had already touched Zen's hand. Zen grabbed and pulled the stick. Suddenly, his right arm released its strength and stopped the stick from falling. The other side of the stick endured Linus' power. The entire stick curved like an arch bridge, but it didn't break. "The stick is good," Zen praised. Linus stared dumbfoundedly at Zen, not knowing what just happened. Just then, the stick turned and Linus felt a burning pain in his hands. Zen had taken the stick away. A painful tremor hit Linus' chest right after, and it turned out that the stick had pierced through his breastbone. The stick started to spin, and Linus' burly body spun as well. A strong surge of other shore power traveled along the stick, and as it spun some more, Linus' body collapsed. Zen grabbed, pulled, and turned the stick. In 3 simple movements, Linus ended up dead. The whole process took only a few seconds. To top it all off, Zen's other hand was even holding the trembling insect razor. The whole call was silent. After all, the insect masters didn't think that the 2 strange visitors who came from far away were terribly powerful, and were able to kill Linus so easily. Of course, Mercer and Miller lit up with joy. They knew that Zen was a powerful cultivator, but they were still surprised at the strength he had just shown. Unlike them, however, the royal monkeys above the call did not look happy. Their horses smelled the tangy odor of blood in the area and didn't dare to move. If Zen had killed Linus so easily, it meant that his strength was far beyond their imagination. Zimba was the quickest to react. He pulled the horse's mane and shouted, "Let's go." The royal monkeys quickly tried to escape, but the second they did so, Zen cried out, "Since you're back, how could you still want to leave? You can't stop us." Zimba turned around and angrily shot back at Zen, who was in the call. This time, however, Zimba's horse suddenly let out a neigh because it was too nervous and terrified. Another horse had thrown out the royal monkey that sat on it due to its anxiousness. The horses in the dark region were by no means ordinary. In fact, the horses the royal monkeys rode were demonic blood horses. They were incomparably strong and had immense fighting power, and there were very few things that they were afraid of. Thus, Simba was confused. His eyes narrowed into slits, and then he saw a human woman who stood in front of the horse. He was still puzzled. Why could this human woman scare his horse to such an extent? Before Simba could find out the reason, he saw the woman spread her hands, and two beams of blazing white light shone brightly. Simba looked at the white light with fear. As a royal monkey, he had spent so many years in stage 14. He had met the stage ruler and witnessed the great Sanskrit light. He clearly knew that everything that the light illuminated would vanish without a trace, as if they had never been in this world. He was also aware that the great Sanskrit light had purified the west part of the dark region some time ago. Thus, everything within a 100-mile radius of it was completely gone. There were many rumors that attempted to explain the situation. Some said that it was the stage ruler who had done it, while others said that there was something wrong with the stage. When Simba saw the white light that came from the human woman's hands, he put the pieces together and came to a realization. It seemed that it wasn't the stage ruler who had done it, but rather a new purified being who was in stage 14. Unfortunately, Simba did not have the chance to bring the news back to his race. Buzz. The moment Elvinia flicked her fingers, the white light had touched the horses and the royal monkeys. The light swept around only a few times, but the royal monkeys and the horses were cut into pieces. This ability of Elvinia enabled her to make them disappear without a trace. She, however, had already consumed too much of her power before and had been restraining herself since she entered the dark region. After Zen climbed out of the call, the insect masters followed one by one. They stared numbly at the chopped-up body parts on the ground, as they never thought that such a thing would happen. The two humans in front of them had killed the superior royal monkeys. Who on earth were they? Clean this place up, Zen said. Several insect tamers took out small round boxes and released a swarm of black bugs. The numerous tiny bugs looked like a mass of black sand as they covered the corpses of the royal monkeys and the horses. They had eaten up the bodies in no time, and even the bloodstains on the ground were gone. Even if we have cleaned this place up, I'm afraid the royal monkey race won't let us go, said one of the insect masters with a bitter look on his face. We will die in a couple of days, Mercer wailed miserably. More than a dozen royal monkeys had died. It was highly possible that the royal monkey race would vent their anger on the insect masters and kill all of them. It won't happen, Zen comforted. Why not? Mercer asked. Because all of the black monkeys will die, Zen replied calmly. There were some things that he might concede to, but threats to him that involved Yan were not something he could allow. No matter what kind of force stood behind these black monkeys, he would never give in to them. Despite his words, the insect masters still looked uneasy. Although he and Elvinia had just killed more than a dozen royal monkeys, the royal monkey race had many other masters. At that point, Zen had already sensed the shape-shifting spirit's direction, so there was no need for him to stay any longer. He and Elvinia decided to continue their pursuit. Just as the two of them were about to leave, Mercer and Miller plucked up the courage to ask Zen if they could follow along. Chapter 3137, The Ghost Wing Bird. The two brothers, Mercer and Miller, were determined in following Zen. Now that the situation became worse, they believed that it was better to pin all their hopes on these two human beings than do nothing. Perhaps, they could really create a miracle. Luckily for Zen, he had the shape-shifting spirit's guidance, so he didn't really need the help of the insect master race that much. Nevertheless, the insect masters were more familiar with the dark region than he and Elvinia were, so it actually wasn't bad that the two tagged along with them. After a while of thought, Zen nodded and said, "It's a pity that Elvinia acted too ruthlessly just now, that none of the horses was left. Those demonic blood horses were the royal monkey's exclusive mounts. Even if they were still alive, they wouldn't let us ride them anyway," said the old insect raiser as he climbed up the call. Then, he took out a small bamboo flute and handed it to Mercer. In turn, Mercer placed the bamboo flute's mouthpiece by his lips, then gently played it. Soon enough, several black beetles emerged from the cave below the call. Those are holy beetles. The moment Mercer saw the beetles, he got a little too excited. The insect master race raised all kinds of insects, snakes, and ants, and among all of them, the holy beetles were the most difficult to tame. Generally speaking, juniors like Mercer didn't have the chance to control the holy beetles. Our benefactors can ride these holy beetles. Mercer and Miller, you two should take good care of them, the old insect raiser ordered. Zen could fly even in the dark region, but the process was somewhat troublesome. That was because the godly way energy was in conflict with the dark region. If he condensed the thunder materialization, the darkness would probably damage his pair of thunder wings in an instant. But since the insect master race just gave them the flying mounts, he didn't refuse the kindness. In a few moments, Zen, Elvinia, Miller, and Mercer each took a holy beetle to mount and rode on them. Then, Mercer played the bamboo flute gently, and the holy beetles carried them into the dark sky. As the holy beetles flew up to a higher altitude, the visibility in the dark region became less clear. The originally dim ground quickly became blurry. The dark sky was like an endless black hole. When Zen raised his head, he could faintly feel the pressure that the darkness emitted. It felt as if something was spying on him from the endless void. Has your insect master race ever explored the sky above the dark region? Zen asked curiously. I haven't seen it before, Mercer answered honestly. But according to the records of our insect master race, our great ancestor once rode a holy beetle into the dark sky. He exclaimed. Did he find anything? Zen asked again. No, Mercer said with a shake of his head. He continued, our great ancestor never came back. Although the other clansmen all say that he stays in the dark sky, I think he must have died there. As a native race in the dark region, the insect master race had always sought survival in the conflicts between the large races. They were too weak. The great ancestor Mercer referred to as the greatest insect master, who had tamed a powerful insect and thus led the insect master race to a brilliant period of development. After the great ancestor had left, however, the remaining insect tamers still could not obtain a position in the dark region and therefore, the insect master race had declined even more over the years. The dark sky. According to Zen's understanding of the other shore, the stages of the other shore were superimposed over one another. It was true since it could also be proved by the things he had seen when he left the Lust world. Yet, when Elvinia had opened a crack in the sky, wouldn't it mean that there was a crack in stage 15 of the other shore? Was stage 15 of the other shore on the top of the so-called dark sky? It sounded unexplainable in a spatial sense. While Zen was deep in his thoughts, the white light in Elvinia's pupils glowed slightly. Something is following us, she told Zen in a low voice. Upon hearing her words, Zen, Mercer, and Miller all turned their heads to look around, but they couldn't see anything in the darkness. Soon enough, they heard the sound of wings flapping, then several huge black shadows came down from above. They turned out to be giant birds, and each of them was about thousands of feet wide. They are ghost-wing birds. Mercer screamed in fright. As soon as he saw the huge black shadows above his head, his eyes instantly went wide open in horror and panic overtook him. Miller was no better, as he also went pale with fear like his brother. As one of the strongest creatures in stage 14 of the other shore, the ghost-wing bird had almost no natural enemy. They flew high in the sky all year round and almost never descended. No one had ever even found a nest of the ghost-wing bird. Even a powerful force like the royal monkey race would die if they encountered the ghost-wing birds. Both Mercer and Miller had once seen the ghost-wing birds glide in the sky back when they were in the call. At that time, all the insect masters held their breaths and didn't dare to do anything. They didn't move even after the ghost-wing birds captured a few of their clansmen, but simply watched them leave in silent distress. Still, that instance had deeply impressed Mercer and Miller. The two brothers never expected to encounter such powerful beings, especially not shortly after they set out. Lower the height, Zen told Mercer. Meanwhile, Mercer was at a loss and didn't know what to do. When he heard Zen's instruction, he tried his best to hold back his fear and played the bamboo flute in his hand. In turn, the holy beetles quickly descended. When the ghost-wing birds saw that Zen and his companions go down from the sky, they immediately followed them closely. Their huge wings were like sails as they flapped continuously. As the ghost-wing birds got closer and closer, their appearance gradually became clear. Brown feathers covered their slender heads, and their eyes were slanted in shape. Overall, they looked rather terrifying. Whoosh! The nearest ghost-wing bird stretched out its long and thin beak, then tried to grab Mercer with its mouth. Compared with the huge body of the ghost-wing bird, Mercer was as small as an ant. Elvinia, drive them away! Zen shouted. He knew that Elvinia's great Sanskrit light was too blinding in the dark region. So, the reason why he had asked Mercer to lower their altitude was not because he wanted to escape, but because he wanted to assist Elvinia in driving those birds away. Buzz! As soon as Zen finished speaking, Elvinia raised her hand. Light swords, which extended up to 1,000 feet upward, swiftly shot up into the air. Puff, puff, puff. Just like shabby canvases, the nearest ghost-wing bird's wings were mangled as the light swords instantly pierced through them and left numerous holes. Of course, Elvenia still wasn't satisfied with the damage she had done. She gently flipped her palm, and the light swords dashed towards the junction between the wings and the torso of the ghost wing bird. It was clear that she actually wanted to cut off the ghost wing bird's wings. The ghost wing bird felt the sharp stab of pain and desperately wanted to escape. Elvenia's light swords, however, were too fast for it to dodge. The second the light swords moved, the ghost wing bird's wings immediately fell off, and its enormous body fell heavily from the sky. Boom! When the other ghost wing birds saw what had happened, they didn't dare to stay any longer. They were afraid that the blazing white light swords might also decapitate their wings, so they flew up and away, then disappeared into the darkness. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Mercer and Miller sat stiffly on the backs of the holy beetles, before they finally sighed in relief and wiped the sweat off their foreheads. They had thought that they would be doomed to death this time, but to their surprise, the human woman's white light swords had defeated the extremely powerful and influential ghost wing birds of the dark region with ease. It almost seemed that these two humans were able to do whatever they wanted in the dark region. Chapter 3138, The Splendid Jade Pass. To the west of the dark region was the splendid Jade Mountain, and within it was a mountain pass. Behind the pass was the royal monkey race's territory. It was naturally impossible for the insect masters to get through this smoothly. 10 miles away from the pass, Mercer ordered the holy beetles to land in a forest. He turned to the others with a serious expression on his face. There should be royal monkeys stationed at the pass. I'll send a spy bug to check it out, he said, opening his pocket where a bug flew out. This bug was the same size as a mosquito and was as light as dust, making it incredibly difficult to spot with the naked eye. Mercer and Miller were no good at fighting. This was the only way they could help Zen. Just as the bug was about to fly away though, Zen shook his head. There's no need. Mercer frowned. Why not? His question went unanswered as Zen turned his attention to Elvenia. Follow me, he told her. The shape-shifting spirit had gone far. They both felt it, which meant that the royal monkey's destination was far away from the pass. They had to be extremely careful around these black monkeys. Yan was still in their hands after all. Unfortunately, they had to kill the group of black monkeys they encountered earlier, and it was only going to be a matter of time before the other monkeys found out. It was currently a race against time. So many royal monkeys, Mercer thought to himself. Then again he remembered how Elvenia had killed those ghost wing birds before, so maybe a few monkeys weren't going to be a problem. The pass was currently being guarded by patrolling royal monkeys. This was the only entrance to their race's territory, and thus, the security here was top-notch and extremely strict. What was more, there had been a rise in the number of royal monkeys sent here. It was already well guarded, but the number of additional patrolmen somehow made the leader of the pass a bit uneasy. There was no way more royal monkeys were sent here to guard the pass for no reason. He wasn't dumb. Trouble was surely afoot for their race. Could it be the one-eyed creatures from before? A couple of years ago, these one-eyed creatures descended upon their pass, but they promptly taught them a lesson. Now, they were at the top of the dark region of stage 14. It was impossible for those one-eyed creatures to come here now unless they were seeking death. Besides, that purified being was currently receiving the best care by the royal monkeys. Chief, a royal monkey on patrol shouted, interrupting the monkey chief's thoughts. Something's coming. The warning came as a shock to the monkey chief. What did you say? He went out of his quarters, craning his neck to see what his subordinate had spotted. The sight above them stunned him. Holy beetles. These bugs were considered as the insect master race's rare treasures. What were they doing here? Did that mean the insect masters were here? Why, were they crazy or something? The chief's eyes narrowed, a trace of anger appearing in their depths. Insect masters, you green-skinned men and your bugs. If you get any closer, we won't hesitate to kill you. Insect masters were cowards by nature, at least to the royal monkeys. He figured he'd be able to scare them away through verbal threats. However, the insect masters showed no signs of retreat and continued their approach with their holy beetles. You're courting death, the chief roared, though he did feel a bit apprehensive about how things were going. He winked at his two subordinates, who immediately drew their javelins from their backs. Mercer and Miller thickly swallowed when they saw the royal monkeys bring out their weapons. Just as the royal monkeys took aim and were about to throw their javelins, a whistle suddenly drew their attention. The monkey chief turned to find a human man hanging on the wall. A human, he exclaimed in astonishment. What is a human doing here in the dark region? He also seems to have a physical body. Zen's appearance caused quite a shock to the monkey chief. He felt his heart clench when he looked at him. Just a few days ago, a group of elite royal monkeys escorted the souls of light of 2 human women through the pass. Could it be related to this human? His apprehensions lasted only a moment though. Kill those who break into the pass without permission. With his command, the 2 subordinates raised their arms and threw their javelins towards Zen. Whoosh, whoosh. The speed at which the javelins traveled was extremely fast, but all it took was a slight twist for Zen to avoid them. Instead of his body, the javelins firmly lodged themselves deep into the wall. Zen saw it fit to use them as a makeshift chair. Have you confirmed it? He said to no one in particular. Are there no other black monkeys around? At the mention of the insult, black monkey, the royal monkeys immediately grew solemn. They didn't know who Zen was talking to, but a voice answered, seemingly out of nowhere, no. All black monkeys are here. Zen smiled and nodded firmly. Let's do this then. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Numerous beams of light appeared from the sky, enveloping the monkeys in the pass. In the blink of an eye, they all found themselves obliterated by the power of the great Sanskrit light. Once all monkeys were eliminated, the ground on which they once stood melted away and bore a circular hole within the pass. This let the light eliminate the black monkeys that were still inside. Among everyone in the pass, only the chief survived. He was a war veteran and his prestige had him in charge of guarding the splendid Jade Pass. Now though, he watched as his entire brethren perished from the white light that suddenly fell from the sky. The only thing in his mind then was confusion. The purified being had attacked them, but why? Why? He tried to come up with a reason, but there was none. Terrified by what he had just witnessed, the monkey chief stood up and poised to run away. Unfortunately, Zen wasn't going to let him go so easily. The only reason he was kept alive was to provide valuable information. Just as the monkey chief was about to run away, Zen pulled out the javelin he had been sitting on and flew towards his prey. The stick at the end of the javelin hit the chief, hard. I want to know something, Zen muttered dangerously as he pinned the chief on the wall. As far as I know, you kidnapped the soul of light of a human girl. The monkey chief's eyes flashed knowingly. It was as he had thought. The human was here because of the 2 girls. The monkey chief stuttered, still in a bit of a shock from the entire ordeal. Just as he spoke, dozens of thin light alls descended from above and nailed themselves on his feet, legs, shoulders, wrists, and chest. On the other side of the city wall was a human woman's figure, the source of these thin light alls. The light of the purified being came from this woman, the chief muttered. He was completely restrained by the alls and the slightest movements could end up with him getting cut into pieces. You want to live? Then tell me what I want to know, or else you'll end up like them, Zen threatened, nodding his head at the void. If the chief didn't comply, he'd end up being obliterated by the great Sanskrit light, just like the rest of his race. Chapter 3139, An Empty City. The monkey chief was in fright, as if he'd just come close to a ghost. At this point, the monkey had no other choice. No one had asked him to keep a secret anyway. In order to survive, the monkey didn't hesitate for too long. I can tell you, but you must let me go. Alive, he said. I promise you. Zen nodded in agreement. And how about her? The monkey asked, pointing at Elvinia. Elvinia saw this and nodded her head in approval, then the monkey let out a sigh before continuing to speak. A few days ago, there were 2 human women passing here, he said very carefully. But they were escorted by the Coldness Monkey Guards. What is the Coldness Monkey Guard? Zen questioned. They are the elites of our race and guard the chief flag monkey, the monkey continued. The chief flag monkey is the commander-in-chief of the royal monkey race in stage 14. At first, I, too, was curious as to why they brought 2 human souls of light back. The monkey went on to tell Zen everything he knew. He even pointed out the location of the Coldness Monkey Guards after asking Zen to take out a map from his pocket. Mercer, Zen called out. He had everything he needed. Mercer, who was riding on a holy beetle, gradually flew to Zen and cupped his hands towards him. Kill him, Zen ordered, pointing at the monkey. The monkey's eyes widened in shock. What just happened? You promised me. He screeched. Yes, I did, Zen smiled, but he didn't promise you. After his last word, he jumped down from the pass with Elvinia following right behind him. Mercer, on the other hand, was stunned to have been given such an order. But because he was loyal to Zen, he was going to do it either way. The royal monkey had no escape. No matter how powerful he was trapped by the light alls fixed on his limbs. Just like that, he was at the disposal of Mercer. After thinking for a moment, Mercer reached into his pocket. From here, he took out several black bugs, which struck terror into the monkey immediately. He knew exactly what they were. These bugs were known as the blood-devouring bugs. Just as their name implied, they would drill themselves into the host's body, multiply instantly, and suck every drop of blood. After the splendid jade pass, the terrain around it gradually opened up. It allowed for better viewing, that even in the darkness, Zen could spot the low houses from a distance. This was where the royal monkeys lived. Just then, Zen raised up the javelin and gave a good look at the area. He then turned to his map as he tried to identify the place better. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. The coldness monkey guards mentioned by that monkey are here, he stated. They are positioned over there. Elvinia looked in the direction Zen pointed out. It's at the same direction of the shape-shifting spirit. How can we get in? The main goal of their journey was to save Yan, and this should be done without disturbing the royal monkeys. To do so, they could not afford to make any mistakes. If the royal monkeys held Yan hostage to coerce Zen, Zen might yield to all their requirements. I think we can use these, Mercer said, holding out the spy bugs in front of Zen. Zen smiled and nodded at him in agreement. With a gentle toss, the bugs flew to the air and vanished into the darkness, heading to where the royal monkeys lived. 5 minutes had passed and Mercer was finally able to gather information on the city. But just as he was about to report to Zen, his face shifted. No, he trailed off. What is it? Zen asked with much concern. I'm sorry to say this, but the city is completely abandoned, Mercer said. None of the monkeys are here. He believed that his spy bugs would never deceive him. How is that possible? Zen hissed, did you make a mistake? These spy bugs are always accurate. How could I be wrong? Mercer answered affirmatively, looking ahead. Furrowing his eyebrows, Zen looked at both Mercer and Elvinia. Well, let's go and take a look. As they entered the city, they finally confirmed that everything Mercer said was true. It was deserted, and no one could understand why. How could they have left so suddenly? It seems that the stupid monkey from the splendid Jade Pass had no idea about this. Zen said, frustrated. Elvinia felt Zen's despair and wanted to turn things around. Let's find the shape-shifting spirit first. Without hesitation, they headed towards the north of the city and began their search using the soul mark. Not long after, they ended up stopping before a wide building. Zen felt something about the building, so he pushed open the door to investigate. Creak. The moment the door swung open, whistling sounds traveled through the air. Swish, swish. Just then, what seemed like thin, shiny needles began to shoot out from the walls of the building. Elvinia raised her eyebrows, sensing the trap. All of a sudden, the light in her hand burst out. Buzz. When the needles were exposed to Elvinia's light, they completely vanished. Moreover, when the light filled up the entire building, they heard screams. It was the shape-shifting spirit. No, don't hurt me, it murmured. It's me, the shape-shifting spirit. Instead of stopping, Elvinia radiated the light even more. It grew and grew, protecting both her and Zen. It was not until the sound of the last needle snapping that Elvinia stopped. Finally, the two could clearly see what was going on in the building. The shape-shifting spirit had already returned to its original form, hanging upside down from a rope. In a haste, Zen suddenly threw the javelin and snapped the rope. What just happened? He asked the spirit. Why were you hung there? The spirit let out a sigh. When I was sent to this city, I was detected. It was very sullen with what it had just said. Though it was skilled in morphing itself, it could only be regarded as a pet. This was because it was not strong enough to go against anyone. Apparently, after getting beaten up by the royal monkeys, it was hung upside down and left behind there. They didn't kill me though, the spirit pointed out. I'm supposedly the bait that would lure you here. Zen nodded, acknowledging this. After all, the needles were already an attempt to kill him. But why are all the royal monkeys gone? The monkeys mentioned that they could not defeat you because you have a purified being, the spirit explained. They also said that if you two are looking for the human woman's soul of light, you'd find them there. It gestured out, pointing towards a corner in the building. Across the wall was a poorly drawn map. The place they had to go to was clearly marked. Analyzing the map, Zen let out a heavy sigh of relief. He then turned towards Elvinia and smiled. A few days ago, your light had eroded an area of the dark region, he said. I think you've frightened these monkeys. They retreated without us even doing anything. Zen chuckled. This was true. In fact, Elvinia could easily kill the entire royal monkey race in a rage. At least now, they had gone before she could do anything. So what? They can't hide forever, said Elvinia expressionlessly. True, but one creature from the dark region is not afraid of the great Sanskrit light, Zen added. Just then, Everything clicked in Elvinia's mind. Her face froze and her voice lowered. Their goal is to lure us into facing the purified being of stage 14. Chapter 3140, The Black Marsh. A vast black marsh stood at the foot of the mountain in the north of the dark region. While the pool was tranquil all year round, an occasional bubble would burst, emitting a deadly poisonous mist. If it could be avoided, no creature in the dark region would willingly approach the black marsh. Da, 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 over 10 horses were galloping in the black marsh. Being able to move at that speed, they were clearly familiar with the area. It was the elite of the royal monkey race, the coldness monkey guards, that rode the horses. In the lead was the chief flag monkey, the race's commander. Hiss, hiss. As the group of monkeys marched forward, a small black snake rushed out from the marsh beside them, trying to bite the chief flag monkey. Swish! The chief flag monkey's reaction was keen. With a casual wave of his hand, the little black snake had been cut into pieces. He grabbed the head in his hand and examined it before frowning. It's poisonous. Be careful. The black marsh was known to be a highly toxic place. Any creature that could survive there was not to be underestimated. Once the chief flag monkey gave his warning, he pulled his horse's mane and led the group forward. In the middle of the group, the horse carried both Yan and Natalie on its back. With the strength of ordinary souls of light, they weren't even matched against the ordinary creatures on the other shore. And those in the dark region were far stronger than those in the light region. Yan and Natalie didn't stand a chance against them in battle. All I know is that the dark region is boundless darkness. I didn't expect there to be any complex forces within, Natalie commented, looking around the marsh. With a frown, Yan said, I wonder why they bring us here from so far away. She had nothing to do with the Star Falcon race. Why did they suddenly decide to make a move? Along the way, Yan and Natalie tried prodding the black monkeys for answers, but they had no problem ignoring them completely. Quack! A strange, harsh scream suddenly broke the atmosphere. They all looked up into the sky to find the source. Several huge birds swooped down, coming for the royal monkeys. Commander, the ghost wing birds are here. One of the royal monkeys confirmed. The coldness monkey guards were the most powerful group of royal monkeys. Both their mentality and strength were far superior to those of ordinary royal monkeys. If the other monkeys saw the birds approaching, they would have already been panic-stricken. These beasts, they've come to make trouble at the most critical moment. Coldness came over the chief flag monkey's face before he gave the order, disperse. But this is the Black Marsh, one of the royal monkeys remarked hesitantly. It was true that the ghost wing birds posed a threat, but the monkeys scattering into the Black Marsh was nothing short of courting death. It's too late. The birds are approaching fast. Another royal monkey pointed out. If they were outside the Black Marsh, they'd have a way to deal with the birds. But all the creatures were subject to limitations in the Black Marsh, save for the creatures that could fly, like the ghost wing birds. You go first. I will guard the rear. When he stopped his horse, the chief flag monkey's armor began glowing with a golden light. His power was accumulating. This time, the senior leaders ordered for Yan to be brought into the dark region and sent to the purified being. The chief flag monkey had to complete the mission, even at the cost of his own life. Quack, quack, quack. Just as the great ghost wing bird swooped down rapidly, the Black Marsh suddenly shook in the distance, from where a slender snakehead rolled out. Whoosh! It passed through tens of thousands of feet with accuracy and precision, catching a ghost wing bird instantly. The creature didn't even have time to respond. It was dragged away by the snake's tongue in mere seconds before it disappeared completely in the depths of the marsh. Quack, quack, quack. The rest of the birds screamed nervously, maneuvering their wings in an attempt to escape. But the tongue that rolled back shot out rapidly again, sweeping away another ghost wing bird in an instant. Da, da, da. In mere seconds, 8 ghost wing birds in the air were completely swept away by the tongue. Natalie and Yan were stunned, frozen by the scene. They already considered the royal monkeys extremely powerful creatures in the dark region. Never did they expect the creatures to fall to a natural enemy like the ghost wing birds. As Natalie silently relished in the fact that the ghost wing birds couldn't leave the dark region, a great tongue gashed out and swallowed up all the royal monkeys. Where did the tongue come from? While Natalie and Yan couldn't exactly be optimistic about their fate, they couldn't help but sigh at the scene they had just witnessed. They had no clue what other secrets they might come across on the other shore. It's the stage ruler. The stage ruler has made a move. That was close. Surprisingly, the royal monkeys seemed excited to see the huge tongue. The chief flag monkey even rode to the front line and ordered, take out the dark nether bugs. The ruler of stage 14 did not belong to any force. Over the years, the royal monkeys had tried all they could to build a good relationship with the stage ruler, but to no avail. The latter was far too irritable. In the years that they offered dark nether bugs as tribute to the stage ruler, many of them were swallowed up. Soon, 6 royal monkeys got off their horses and each raised an iron plate above their heads. On the iron plates, dark nether bugs were curling up. Slow down. Don't bear any hostility, the stage ruler is very sensitive. Slower. The chief flag monkey didn't fail to remind his team members. And so the royal monkeys carried the iron plates, carefully moving step by step. If they moved even slightly too fast, they'd end up being the stage ruler's food just as the dark nether bugs. Although there were only a few miles ahead, the royal monkeys walked for 10 whole minutes. When they reached the edge of a black marsh, the tongue shot out once again and swept over one of the monkeys, along with the dark nether bug above his head. He was dragged into the darkness. The scene had all the other royal monkeys trembling in fear. But they were the coldness monkey guards, they wouldn't shy away from death. None of them had the slightest intention to throw away the dark nether bugs and flee. Stage ruler. The chief flag monkey hurried over to the edge of the marsh and bowed respectfully. Having already tasted the delicious dark nether bug, the stage ruler wasn't likely to attack again so soon. Plop, 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 from the dark marsh emerged a head covered in spikes of flesh. A pair of orange eyes sat on the sides of the head, the pupils flickering back and forth so fast that they looked like lines. A hoarse voice then resounded. "You're using the dark nether bugs to please me again.